The bells echoed above the grand cathedral, startling a flock of white doves into flight. A large crowd had gathered before the church doors. Someone in the crowd shouted, "Look over there." They finally came out. The onlookers buzzed with excitement. So that's the Saintess Genevieve everyone's been talking about? I heard she came here in person this time to purify the poison of magical beasts. The people continued, and the man beside her. That's Duke Shane Blancard, head of the Blancard family. The young women in the crowd whispered in admiration, so the rumors were true. His face really is a masterpiece crafted by heaven. It's like his whole face is glowing. The only one worthy of standing beside his grace is Genevieve, right? Exactly. The two of them are truly a match made in heaven. The murmurs rose and fell throughout the crowd. I heard she's the saintess who appears only once every 100 years, and the Duke was her protector from the very beginning. It's practically fate. I also heard they're getting married very soon. Someone asked in confusion, "Wait, didn't the Duke used to have a fiancée?" Another person replied, "Ah, he did, but she died in an accident 5 years ago." It may be a little disrespectful to the dead, but for the sake of the Empire, this outcome is for the best. Hidden among the crowd, Adeline thought, "I'm glad you're doing well, Shane." Blancard, the man who had been my fiancé 5 years ago. I had no choice but to leave him because of a reason I could never tell him. I thought he would forget me soon enough. After all, our engagement was only a formality. And more importantly, after I left, my fiancé and the heroine of this world, Genevieve, were supposed to reach their happy ending very quickly. I was nothing more than the villainess who tormented them. The people's cheers rang out again. Look, the Saintess. She's the perfect future Duchess. May they be happy forever. Adeline pulled her cloak tighter and hid her face. This is enough. I've already decided to find my own way to survive. There is no turning back now. Adeline closed her eyes and prayed silently in her heart. Shane, I sincerely hope that from now on, you'll always live well. I once thought that if I did this, I could change the ending of this world. Then, at tonight's banquet, the Duke has invited. Realizing just how foolish my former thinking had been, I turned and left, disappearing into the far end of the street. Everything had happened so quickly. My name is Adeline, the only beloved daughter of the Bertrand Marquis family, and also someone who was reincarnated. At first, because I carried vague memories of my previous life, I always felt out of place in this unfamiliar world. But when I saw the sincere love my parents gave me and my two dependable older brothers, I began to think of them as my real family. I decided to bury the emotions from my past life and live on as a carefree child, surrounded by everyone's affection. In the garden, the maids ran after me, calling out, "Oh my, Lady Adeline, please don't run so fast. You'll get hurt." But that strange sense of unease never left me. Then one day, Father led young Adeline into the hall and introduced someone to me. "Adeline, say hello. This is your fiancé, the young Duke Blancard." Adeline looked at the boy before her. That child was a young Shane, standing in the sunlight with a polite smile. "Hello. I look forward to getting along with you, Adeline." I stared at him in a daze. "My fiancé," I stammered in reply. "Why, yes. I look forward to it too." Wow, he looked exactly like a prince straight out of a fairy tale. That was the day I first met Shane. At first, as someone who had been reincarnated, I worried whether I could really maintain an engagement with a child. Perhaps because Shane was far more mature than children his age, or perhaps because I had already fully adapted to being a child myself. Those initial worries quickly disappeared. We were always happy together. Thanks to him, I was able to completely fit into this world. A breeze stirred the trees of the estate. "Shane, someday I want to travel to every corner of the Empire, but I bet my family would worry about me the whole time, so it's a secret. Lately, I've been secretly saving up my own money." Adeline noticed his silence. That look again. Shane's expression turned a little vacant, as though nothing in the world meant anything to him. As a reincarnated person, it was Shane who helped me adapt here, so I wanted him to find happiness too. Could there be something about him that I still didn't know? Not long after that, Shane's mother died. The funeral was held under gloomy skies. A heavy atmosphere filled the funeral. The guests gathered together and whispered among themselves. "That child doesn't seem like a child at all." A richly dressed woman curled her lip and said, "I heard the Duchess wasn't close to young Shane while she was alive. Maybe it's because he isn't lovable at all. That's probably why she couldn't feel any affection for him." At last, I understood what that expression Shane sometimes showed really meant. All this time, he had been silently enduring those rumors. No matter how mature he acted, he was still just a child. Shane stood alone before the casket, silently looking at the white flowers laid upon it. Adeline walked up to him and embraced him. Shane froze in place. "Adeline?" Tears streaming down her face. Adeline said, "You're still just a child. Why are you holding back your tears?" Shane looked flustered. "What are you talking about?" Adeline continued. At a time like this, even now, you don't have to pretend to be an adult. You can cry. After a moment, Shane tried to comfort her. Adeline calmed down. I'm really fine. He looked at Adeline and gave a faint smile. See, I'm even smiling. Adeline cried out loudly. You idiot. Why are you the one comforting me instead? Shane looked at her in confusion. Huh? Adeline held him tightly and said, I'll always stay by your side, Shane. Looking at him, she continued, when people are overwhelmed with grief, sometimes they lie to themselves and pretend everything is fine. But that doesn't mean that they're truly okay. So let's stay together, all right? Don't choose to be alone. Shane looked at Adeline and remained silent for a long while. All right, thank you, Adeline. After that, we leaned on each other. I thought our future would continue happily like that forever, until that day came. When I was 9, I happened to see a line in the newspaper, and from then on, my life changed completely. The paper said, the saintess appears once every 100 years. However, it has now been nearly a century since the previous saintess appeared, and the new one has yet to reveal herself. To ease the growing anxiety of the people, the Empire has already given the future saintess the title of Savior of the Empire. As Adeline read those words in the paper, her heart jolted. Wait, a saintess who appears once every 100 years, and the Savior of the Empire? This story, it's definitely the novel I read in my previous life. Don't tell me I was reincarnated into the world of that novel. The title of the novel was, she was thought to be a fake saintess, but she was actually real. It was an ordinary romance story about a saintess who could purify the poison of magical beasts and a duke who protected her. But the problem was Adeline. She continued reading the report in the newspaper. Young Duke Shane Blancard of the Blancard family distinguished himself in the tournament and later became a candidate to assist the saintess. The male lead of that novel was actually my fiancé, Shane Blancard. And I, as the male lead's fiancé, became consumed with jealousy over the growing affection between the male and female leads, committed all sorts of evil acts, and in the end died as a miserable villainess. But that wasn't all. There was an even more shocking truth. The saintess's awakening. In this typical fantasy novel world, magical beasts ran rampant, and only the saintess, the heroine, could purify their poison and save all humanity. Yet the trigger for the saintess's awakening was the death of the villainess, Adeline. After awakening, the heroine would use her power to stop the world's destruction and bring about a happy ending. In other words, this story could only reach its conclusion through the death of me, the villainess. The clatter of tableware rang out. Shane looked at Adeline across from him and asked, Adeline, what are you thinking about so deeply? By the way, after lunch, shall we take a walk? I want to show you the flowers blooming in the garden. Adeline lowered her head, looking at the book in her hands, her face pale as deep fear took hold of her. Late that night, there was a knock outside the manor bedroom. Adeline, it's me, Shane. Let's talk. Did I do something wrong? I just don't understand why you suddenly asked to break off our engagement. Hiding beneath the blankets, Adeline listened to the voice outside the door. I am sorry, Shane. I have no choice. Shane, I'm truly sorry. Please go away for now. Don't be so kind to me anymore. Shane stood outside the door in silence. Ever since realizing she had been reincarnated, she had asked Shane to end their engagement. It was all to change the original plot, even if only a little. Any change would do. If I let Shane go, then he would meet the heroine sooner. Somewhere along the way, perhaps another method of awakening the saintess could be found. Even though the engagement would not be so easily broken because of the wishes of our elders, I had to distance myself from Shane no matter what. I am sorry. Shane, I hurt you, but you'll forget someone like me soon enough. After all, you're the protagonist destined for a happy ending. Once the saintess appears, I'll do everything I can to help her awaken. That way, I can protect everyone and avoid my own death. But the cruelty of this novel was far beyond what I imagined. Rain poured outside the window. In the bedroom at midnight, heavy footsteps echoed. Lying in bed, Adeline listened as they came closer and closer, confusion filling her heart. Footsteps? Suddenly, thunder roared outside, and a flash of lightning split the darkness, illuminating a figure by the bed holding a dagger. The person's eyes were bloodshot as they viciously drove the blade down. Adeline let out a scream. No, it was only a dream. Adeline pressed a hand to her forehead, exhausted. How many days had these nightmares been going on? Ever since she asked to break off the engagement, she had been tormented by these terrifying dreams. In them, Adeline tried countless ways to escape her fate. In one dream, she successfully ended the engagement, only to die by poisoning in the end. In another dream, she tried to become a follower of Genevieve, but still couldn't avoid assassination. Even in a dream where she fled to a convent, she died in a sudden carriage accident. And today's dream was even more absurd. Her second brother had returned from a business trip to the kingdom of Tizhit, bringing back a servant. Adeline, ended up dying by that servant's sword. All of these nightmares had one thing in common. No matter how she struggled, the end was always death. Sitting at the breakfast table, Adeline recalled the details of the dream. A business trip to the kingdom of Tizit? My second brother isn't even an adult yet. That makes no sense. These dreams are getting stranger and stranger. The noblewoman sitting across from her asked with concern, Adeline, your face looks so pale. Are you feeling unwell? Adeline forced a smile and replied, I just didn't sleep well last night. The noblewoman sighed and said, Oh, my dear, you must be upset because your second brother is going on a long journey. That's why you couldn't sleep, isn't it? Adeline froze as a chill swept through her whole body. She hurriedly asked, Brother is leaving? Where's he going? The woman replied, Where else? To the kingdom of Tizhit, of course. He said he wants to begin trading there. Adeline stood frozen in place. The kingdom of Tizhit. That was the place in her dream where her brother brought back that servant. Could it be that those weren't just nightmares, but prophetic dreams? As if to confirm her suspicions, from that day onward, the dreams began coming true one by one. If Adeline dreamed that her eldest brother would return to the territory, then the next day, he really would set out for it. If she dreamed that her mother would fall ill, then her mother would truly be bedridden. All of it was as if someone were predicting her death and mocking her with it. Unlike the novels where other reincarnated people could forge their own destinies, this world seemed to whisper to Adeline that if she did not die, the world would be destroyed. Adeline let out a cold laugh. So that's how it is. You really want me dead that badly? Driven into a corner, Adeline felt a surge of defiance rise within her. If she couldn't avoid death no matter what, then she would simply fake her death and deceive fate itself. After that, Adeline began carefully preparing news of her own death. Following the original plot, she gathered a group of highly capable and tight-lipped subordinates and precisely calculated the timing and method of the fake death. Because Genevieve awakened out of guilt for failing to prevent Adeline's death, the plan had to be carried out at the exact moment Genevieve was attacked, just as it happened in the original story. While preparing the plan, Adeline continued keeping her distance from Shane. Though she couldn't officially break off the engagement due to interference from their elders, she still had no intention of marrying him. Time flew by. A few years later, Genevieve finally appeared, and Adeline's plan to fake her death was finally ready. On the day the plan was carried out, a shrill scream rang through the imperial palace. A terrified attendant shouted, Your Grace! Adeline had protected the saintess Genevieve. Holding the blood-soaked Adeline, Genevieve pleaded through tears, Lady Adeline, please open your eyes and look at me. Shane rushed forward and took Adeline from Genevieve's arms. Go find a healer, at once. The attendant answered in a trembling voice, Why yes, my lord. Weakly, Adeline leaned against Shane's chest. This hurts even more than I expected. Holding her tightly, Shane said in a shaking voice, Adeline, please. Don't close your eyes. Look at me, all right? Adeline felt her consciousness gradually fading, as though her entire body were being torn apart. In a low voice, she murmured, Shane. Shane replied, I'm here, Adeline. I'm right here. Before leaving, she had to say these words. Adeline reached up and touched Shane's cheek. I'm sorry for deceiving you and everyone else, and for hurting you. I will surely pay the price for it. Forget me, and live happily. Promise me, all right? With the last of her strength, she said now, Farewell. Adeline's hand fell limply, and she completely lost consciousness. Shane cried out in despair, Adeline. Thinking of Shane and her family, Adeline was filled with guilt. But she had no choice, because this was the only way to save everything. And so, Adeline successfully faked her death and left that place. In a study late at night, Shane stood alone before the window, looking at the documents scattered across the floor. Memories from the past kept replaying in his mind. Adeline had once smiled and said to him, Shane, remember this. Even if something bad happens, don't be sad, because I will definitely make you happy. You made me that promise. So why? Did you abandon me, Adeline? 5 years later, Adeline looked at the newspaper in front of her and said, Finally, I've finally seen this article. The long wait is finally over. The newspaper carried news of the wedding of the century. The headline read, The Blessed Bride's Beautiful Smile. In the photo, Genevieve wore a wedding dress. Just like in the original story, the two of them got married. The commoner saintess had turned around her turbulent life. It seems her awakening went smoothly as well. The article even speculated that her steadily increasing divine power might be born of love. The plan had succeeded, to prepare a drug that could make someone appear dead without arousing suspicion, and to map out an escape route from inside the coffin. Adeline had taken advantage of loopholes in noble funerals. None of this would have been possible without Lloyd. He had been by my side ever since childhood. And there was Lucian, too. That leader. Adeline sank into thought. Strangely, the Blanchard ducal house has been very quiet. Was I forgotten that quickly because my existence meant so little? Shane, he looks exactly the same as before. I knew those two would suit each other perfectly. Shane, I'm truly happy for you. Adeline gathered her thoughts. All right, enough nostalgia. Now all that's left is to catch the final mastermind, right? There should still be some time left. It wouldn't hurt to gather a bit more money for the life ahead. Hurried footsteps sounded outside the door. Lloyd shouted, Miss Lady Adeline. Adeline looked up. HM, what is it, Lloyd? You're not usually this flustered. Lloyd was clutching a letter tightly in his hand. We just received word from our informant in the capital. Your mother has passed away. The newspaper slipped from Adeline's hand. This had to be a lie. Why would mother suddenly be gone? Tears streamed down Adeline's cheeks. Mother, this was never the result I hoped to see when I left home. After a long silence, Adeline called out Lloyd. Lloyd stood to the side and answered yes. Let's go back home. I want to pay my respects to Mother. A carriage raced through the night. Lloyd, sitting across from her, reminded her, if we leave now, we may have to wait quite a while before the funeral begins. Is that all right with you? As long as they still haven't discovered that I'm alive, going now is actually better. Lloyd nodded. Yes, understood. I'll stay nearby. Please put your mind at ease and say your farewell. Adeline said softly, thank you, Lloyd. The carriage arrived at the cemetery. Looking at the rows of tombstones in the distance, Adeline said, thank goodness we made it before the funeral started. Let's pay our respects to Mother quickly and leave. Then a low voice rang out from the darkness. Got you. Before Adeline could even react, a hand seized her arm. Adeline gasped. She turned her head and saw the face of the person beside her. Shane? It's been a long time, Adeline. Adeline stared at Shane, who stood right before her. Impossible. Why is Shane here? A strange scent drifted toward her, and Adeline instantly sensed something wrong. This smell. Shane looked at Adeline and said, if I'd known you'd throw yourself into danger over a fake obituary like this, I would have released one sooner. A wave of dizziness hit Adeline. No, my consciousness. Adeline lost all strength and collapsed into Shane's arms. Holding the unconscious Adeline, Shane said, sleep, my beautiful fiancée. When you wake up, we'll be together. A voice called to her in the darkness. Adeline, Adeline. Adeline opened her eyes and looked at the flower bed before her. What is this? A voice asked, what are you thinking so hard about? Looking at the blurred figure, Adeline thought I was clearly at Mother's funeral. Shane, looking at the scene in front of her, Adeline said, I remember now. This is a memory from when we were children. Why does every living thing have to die? Can't we stay together forever? In Adeline's memory, young Shane had always been gentle and kind. The young Shane took Adeline's hand and said, Adeline, I will never die. I'll always stay by your side. Forever. Struggling out of the dream, Adeline woke with a start. No, is that real? Where is this? I definitely saw Shane at the funeral. After that, my memory cuts off. Adeline pressed a hand to her forehead. Wait, back then Shane definitely said fake obituary, didn't he? What exactly happened? The sound of a door opening came from outside. Sitting on the bed, Adeline looked toward the entrance. Genevieve pushed the door open and entered. My goodness, Lady Adeline. Adeline's heart jolted when she saw Genevieve before her. Genevieve? Staring at the woman now standing in front of her. Genevieve. Why is she here? Genevieve was originally the heroine. Even though she grew up in a terrible environment and suffered abuse, she was still an upright and compassionate girl. Genevieve stepped forward and embraced Adeline. You're really alive. Genevieve, back then, Wiz Grace told me, I could hardly believe it. The moment you collapsed in front of me and stopped breathing is still vivid in my mind, even now. But now that I can see you're alive like this, you should have contacted me at least. Adeline replied softly, I'm truly sorry for deceiving you. Genevieve. Genevieve glanced around the room and asked, but how did you end up here? This doesn't look like the Duke's residence. Adeline answered, Shane brought me here. So it really was Shane who brought me here. No, wait. How did she find me? We have to get out of here before more people notice. Adeline looked at Genevieve and said, Genevieve, I have so much I want to say, but could you first tell me what exactly happened? It would be even better if you could help me escape. Genevieve lowered her head and replied, I'm sorry, Lady Adeline. If I did that, Shane would be very angry. Adeline asked in confusion, but Shane is your husband. If it's his wife's request, he'll definitely listen. Genevieve froze. My husband? Adeline looked at Genevieve's reaction. HM, why is she reacting like that? Genevieve seemed to realize something. I think you assumed that because of the article about the wedding. Adeline pressed, yes, that article. Genevieve, didn't you get married? Genevieve nodded. Yes, I did get married. Adeline replied urgently. See, then if it's Shane, he'll definitely listen to his wife. Genevieve added calmly, although the person I married was not Shane. Adeline froze on the spot. What did you say? She asked again, then what was that about? The article clearly said, Genevieve explained, at first glance, that newspaper was definitely designed to make it look like I had married the Duke. But in fact, nowhere in the article did it actually say that the Duke was my husband. Adeline murmured blankly, that's impossible. Adeline recalled what Shane had said before. If I'd known you'd take the bait over something as trivial as a fake obituary, I would have released one sooner. Adeline realized what that meant. Mother's obituary, and that wedding, they were all traps. Could all of this have been Shane's plan to lure me out? Genevieve continued. So my husband is a knight of the Crown Prince's Guard, a man with neither land nor title. Not Shane. Adeline found it impossible to believe. Why would Shane do this? His Grace heard that you were alive, Lady Adeline. That's why I cooperated with him. He said that if we did this, you would definitely come back. Looking at Adeline, Genevieve said, until the moment the article was released, I was worried this might be a mistake. I never expected that you really would return. Adeline murmured softly, Genevieve. With a serious expression, Genevieve asked, then please answer me now, Lady Adeline. Why did you disappear 5 years ago? Adeline avoided her gaze. I can't say it. How could I possibly tell you that this world is actually a novel, that I am the villain fated to die after hurting you, and that my death was the necessary condition for your awakening? I can't say it. Genevieve gave a slight smile. As expected, you won't tell me so easily, Lady Adeline. Feeling guilty, Adeline replied, I'm sorry, Genevieve. Genevieve stood up and said, if I help you now, His Grace won't spare me or my husband, but I will ask His Highness the Crown Prince for help. At the very least, I'll try to get you out of this room. Adeline said softly, Genevieve. If Genevieve had gone this far, then Shane must truly have gone mad. Adeline replied, thank you, Genevieve. Reaching the door, Genevieve stopped. Lady Adeline. Adeline answered, what is it? Someday you'll tell me, won't you? The reason you left for those 5 years. Looking at Genevieve's back, Adeline thought. The reason the current story had strayed so far from the novel was something no one knew. No one knew what my life would become. More than anyone, I wanted to tell the truth and find peace. But through my dreams, I foresaw that if I did, I would put all of them in danger. Looking at Genevieve, Adeline said, I'll try. When everything is over. Genevieve smiled. I'll wait. Actually, the person who most wants to hear that explanation is someone else, Lady Adeline. At the Blanchard Ducal Estate. In Shane's office, Shane stood alone by the window. Adeline. 5 years later, the Adeline I saw again was much thinner than I remembered. If, after making such a decision, you still chose to leave my side, then you should at least have been living better. How ironic, Adeline. Though saying this now has no meaning anymore. Because you will never be able to leave me again. If you must hate something, then hate the fate that brought us together. We first met when I was 10 years old. The young Adeline looked at the boy before her and said, hello, are you my fiancé? Shane looked at the girl before him. So this child is my fiancé, the daughter of the Bertrand family. The Bertrand family possessed fertile lands and was a wealthy house thriving in commerce. Precisely because of that, the royal family had long wanted a direct alliance with the Bertrands. But after being rejected again and again, they finally chose a compromise. That compromise was to make me, the emperor's illegitimate son, the Bertrand family's son-in-law. So neither she nor I cared in the least who the other person was. Shane looked at Adeline and said, that's right. I look forward to getting to know you. At the time, before meeting Adeline, I truly thought that way. Back then, she had a strange side to her. Adeline could always answer those difficult topics with ease, yet the next moment pretend to know nothing at all. She also stared at my face all the time, and the moment she was caught, she would immediately pretend to look elsewhere. To me, those actions alone were enough to draw my attention. I possessed a special ability that set me apart from others, and because of it, the whole world felt dull and meaningless. In those days, even while surrounded by people, I felt no different from being alone. Everything was simply boring. Perhaps that was why. The sound of something shattering echoed through the hall. Don't bring that child before me. Those blue eyes staring at me are horrifying. What? Shane is your own son. He doesn't seem like a child at all. Do you really think that child is normal? How could I ever feel affection for a monster like that? Young Shane stood in the shadows, listening to his parents argue. Even his own mother found him unsettling. Her words didn't hurt him all that deeply. Adults could never hide the unease they felt when facing someone as abnormal as him. As proof of that, at my mother's funeral, I felt no sadness at all. That was certainly true. Shane, stay by my side. Don't shut yourself away all alone anymore. At the funeral, when Adeline comforted me and embraced me, her warmth was so intense that it even made me wish, for a moment, that I could truly feel grief. From that moment on, I, who had once believed it didn't matter who my fiancé was, began to feel grateful that person was Adeline. It was astonishing. Life was no longer dull or meaningless. I had never imagined I could feel something like that for another person. All those little trivial things that meant nothing to anyone else became lovable simply because it was her. Looking at the snow filling the sky, Adeline said, Shane, look, the snow is beautiful, isn't it? Shane replied softly, yes. As he looked at her, Shane made a secret vow in his heart. I will never let anyone have her. And yet fate moved in the exact opposite direction. Adeline suddenly announced that she wanted to break off the engagement. Shane chased after her and asked, Adeline, if I've done something wrong, please tell me. Adeline avoided his gaze and replied, no, it's not because of anything like that. I'm sorry. Adeline turned and walked away. Wait, Adeline. Because the engagement had been arranged by the royal family, it was never truly canceled. But Adeline began avoiding me constantly. Adeline looked at Shane and said, Shane, you have to be honest about your feelings. When the person you love appears before you, you must hold on to them. In a low voice, Shane replied, yes. I understand. There were rumors that she had found someone new, and she always behaved as if she could foresee the future. Though I was torn apart inside, I maintained a calm exterior. I kept waiting for the day she would return to my side. Yet what came instead was the cold news of her death. Shane cried out in despair, "Adeline." As Adeline collapsed in his arms, she said, "I'm sorry, Shane. You once told me not to let myself be left all alone. Forget me and live happily, all right?" Shane looked at her in anguish. "But you said you would always stay by my side." She was the only color in my world, my only emotion, my only beloved. On the day Adeline Bertrand died, my world completely collapsed. Then one day, I received a letter from the Crown Prince. It said, "Shane, I know you haven't been well lately, but this matter is extremely important. Do you remember that servant who was often by Adeline's side? While investigating an underground organization illegally trafficking magical beast byproducts, I discovered that the ringleader, Lucian Cole, had frequently been in contact with Adeline's servant, especially starting 6 years ago. He came and went there with such frequency that it was practically like his own home. Lucian is skilled at forging any kind of information, so I always found it strange. How did Adeline end up involved with someone like that?" As Shane looked at the letter, a thought suddenly struck him. Could it be? Through the Crown Prince's letter, I realized a possibility. Perhaps Adeline's death had been an act from beginning to end. Shane tightly gripped the report in his hand. My subordinates confirmed that Adeline met with Lucian Cole the day before the incident. The moment I finally learned the truth from my men, the despair of being deceived and the sense of betrayal nearly drowned me. Sitting in his chair, Shane let out a cold laugh. But amid that anger, the thought that I might find her again filled me with a nearly ecstatic thrill. I didn't know why she had gone to such lengths to leave me, but none of that mattered now. I decided that first, I would keep her by my side completely. Adeline. Several days passed. Ever since Genevieve left, Adeline had been searching for a chance to escape. The room was on an upper floor, and beyond the window, there was nothing but dense forest. Adeline had no choice but to abandon the idea of escaping that way. Lying on the bed and staring at the ceiling, she let out a sigh. This is really a dead end. I can't understand what Shane is thinking at all. Ever since that day, Shane had never appeared again. She had no chance to ask him directly. At that moment, the door was pushed open. A startled voice came from outside. My goodness. The moment Adeline heard that voice, she whipped her head around. That voice, Mother? Emma, stood in the doorway, both hands covering her mouth, tears overflowing in her eyes. Emma rushed into the room and threw her arms around Adeline. Adeline, my daughter. So the news of Mother's death that Shane fabricated was true. In a way, that gave her some relief. But what on earth is Shane thinking? Why would he bring Mother here on purpose? Calm down, Emma. Adeline looked toward the door in disbelief. One by one, the rest of her family entered the room. Father and my brothers are all here too. Patrick helped Emma and said, "Mother, please step back. For now, we still can't completely trust Shane." Looking at Adeline, Jeff gave a cold laugh. He might well have found a woman who looks exactly the same. Duke Blanchard, Shane, approached from the end of the corridor with Genevieve behind him. Patrick looked at Shane and said, "Duke Blanchard, I personally placed my sister into that coffin. Do you think I would believe this woman is my sister?" Shane stopped walking and replied, "At that time, Adeline was in a state of suspended death. Given Genevieve's power back then, that was her limit." Patrick pressed, "What do you mean by that? Genevieve's power?" Shane continued, "Adeline never died. The moment she was attacked, Genevieve's power protected her. So during the mourning period before the burial, we brought her out. After that, we continued assisting Genevieve in trying to wake her." Genevieve stepped forward and added, "The goddess answered 5 years of prayer." Patrick looked at the two of them and fell silent. With her hands clasped together, Genevieve prayed devoutly. "For the sake of my benefactor, Lady Adeline, these 5 years were not wasted at all." Watching this, Adeline inwardly muttered, "Aren't these people even better liars than I am?" "Genevieve, even you too." The Marquis looked at Shane and asked, "Then why didn't you tell us from the beginning?" Shane answered, "You said Adeline's death happened because I failed to strengthen security at the ducal house. That was my fault, and besides, you never gave me a chance to explain. Most importantly, I wasn't sure this method would succeed. I wanted to wait until it did. It wasn't shame." The Marquis said thoughtfully, "So that is why you never officially dissolved the engagement." Shane looked at Adeline. "I told you before, I have never considered anyone other than Adeline. Since Adeline has returned safely, I intend to hold the wedding as soon as possible." Adeline froze where she stood. "A wedding? This is absurd. Will someone please object?" She looked around and found everyone seemingly silent. Were they too shocked and so simply accepting Shane's words? Jeff still looked doubtful, but the body we confirmed that day was definitely. The Marquis cut him off. "Enough, Jeff. Now that he's said this much, we can no longer continue doubting him." The Marquis looked at Adeline and said, "I'm sorry, Adeline. When a wish someone has longed for suddenly comes true, it's often difficult to believe it's real at first. No, that's just an excuse. I'm truly glad you came back. Truly, I really am." Looking at Adeline, the Marquis began to cry. Looking at her father before her, Adeline was filled with mixed emotions. "These are the people I abandoned in order to survive. I thought they would live, well, even without me. But if we met again like this, without any preparation, then at least in this moment, I couldn't push my family away. Yes, I missed all of you too. Mother, father." At the Bertrand Marquis estate, Adeline returned to the home she knew so well. Though leaving that room was a good thing still. The Marquis walked ahead and said, "We'll take care of everything. We'll restore all things to how they were. Our daughter has no need to worry about anything." Following behind her parents, Adeline thought, "In the end, I still came back to this house." Patrick looked at Adeline. "Don't ever do anything dangerous again." Jeff added, "You must still be confused right now. Get some rest first." Adeline answered, "All right." When the door closed, Adeline was left alone in the room. She slumped down beside the bed and sighed. "This is strange. My parents and my brothers, they weren't like this before, were they?" In her memories, this family should have been cold, distant, and selfish, like a true villainous family. Why had they suddenly become so kind? While she was still unable to make sense of it, a voice came from the room. "You finally come back." Adeline suddenly turned her head. She looked toward the source of the voice. "Lloyd?" Adeline asked, "Where have you been all this time?" Lloyd answered, "I was observing the situation near the ducal estate where you were imprisoned. When I saw you being moved to the Marquis estate, I followed." Lloyd sighed and continued, "I was worried the whole time that Shane might do something to you. Seeing that you're safe now is a huge relief, though I always believed you definitely managed to escape." Looking at Adeline, Lloyd asked, "But what exactly is going on now? Didn't the Duke already marry the Saintess?" Adeline curled up and buried her head in her knees. Things seemed to have become a little complicated. When I first resolved to abandon everyone and leave, it wasn't easy for me either. But now, the effort I've made up to now has become meaningless. What am I supposed to do now? Lloyd walked over to her and said, "If you want to sleep, go sleep in the bed." Adeline replied, "I don't want to sleep. If I fall asleep now, I feel like I'll have another nightmare." Looking at her, Lloyd asked, "Are you planning to give up like this? If not, then you need to sleep. You have to conserve your strength." Adeline thought to herself, "He's right. Lloyd is right. I can't just give up like this." Adeline lay down on the bed and quietly answered, "Okay, even if it ends up hurting my family, even if my fiancé comes to hate me because of it, no matter what it costs, I have to survive in this world." Holding on to that thought, Adeline finally fell asleep. The next morning, sunlight spilled over the buildings of the Marquis estate. Newspapers covered the table, and the headline boldly read, "Miracle of the Saintess. Bertrand family's daughter brought back to life after 5 years." The paper published an interview with Genevieve. "Miss Adeline is like an older sister to me. I'd always wanted to repay her kindness. For Miss Adeline, who once saved my life, I'm truly happy to let her see the light of life once again." As Adeline stared at the newspaper in her hands, her whole body stiffened. "They actually announced my return to the entire world. With this much attention on me, how am I supposed to plan an escape now?" Another headline was even more striking. "Love of the Century. Duke Blancard declares, the daughter of House Bertrand is the only woman in my life." As Adeline read it, she thought Shane, while he was keeping me locked up, was he laying all this groundwork the whole time? Adeline muttered, "What a liar." Sitting beside her, Shane replied, "My Adeline, isn't that a little harsh to say about your fiancé?" Adeline looked at him and asked, "If you dislike it so much, why don't you leave? This is my home, after all." Shane smiled and said, "I haven't finished the tea my future mother-in-law prepared for me, so I can't leave yet." A wave of helplessness washed over Adeline. My determination to make a new escape plan quickly became meaningless, because Shane came to see me every single day. In reality, my family had become accomplices to this threat. So even after leaving that locked room, the whole world was still a prison to me, and my family were the guards. Right now, I was waiting for an old friend, one of the people I least wanted to see. A childhood friend with overwhelming possessiveness, someone who couldn't stand anything slipping out of his control. The door opened, and Edwin walked in. "So you really are alive." Adeline. In the original novel, Adeline wasn't just a simple villainess. In the end, she died at the hands of someone deeply in love with the heroine. You could say it was the price she paid for all her wrongdoings. In other words, every male lead candidate in the original story was a prime suspect in my murder. Besides Shane, there were 3 others. A mage who controlled monsters, a crime lord who ruled the underworld, and the crown prince who stood at the peak of power and excelled at political maneuvering. "You don't look surprised at all," Edwin said as he sat down on the sofa. "Actually, I'm very surprised. So why exactly did you stage something like this?" To be honest, the person I suspected most at first was you, Edwin. "You really are curious about a lot of things," she thought. "Honestly, it was interesting. Had I committed some crime?" After all, Edwin held far more power than the Bertrand family. He was nothing like the gentle appearance he presented. Edwin continued, "Perhaps not. No matter what crime you committed, someone could solve it for you." His personality was the complete opposite of his soft and kindly face. Edwin smiled at Adeline. "Answer me, Adeline." Lowering her head, Adeline replied, "It's not like that." Edwin pressed on. "Then why?" Adeline screamed inwardly, "Because if I don't run away, I'll die." But she couldn't say those words aloud. She had once resolved to expose this secret even if people thought she was mad, until she had a nightmare. In that dream, the person who learned the secret was killed as well. So no matter what, she absolutely could not tell the truth. "All right, I'll hear your explanation later," Edwin said, then turned to Shane. Duke Blancard, I heard you had something to say to me. Shane closed his eyes and answered, yes. We'll be holding the wedding soon. Edwin froze. A wedding? For now, I am simply informing your highness of our engagement. It received his majesty's approval long ago. Even so, Edwin looked at Adeline. What about Adeline's opinion? I never agreed to this. Seeing the anger on Adeline's face, Edwin said, it seems there's no way to have a proper discussion right now. He stood, straightened his sleeve, and said, fine, do as you please. Even if I tried to stop you, you wouldn't stop anyway. It looks like the Empire will be in turmoil over this for quite a while. As Edwin walked to the door, he said, then I'll take my leave. He lifted Adeline's hand and pressed a kiss to the back of it. Welcome back, Adeline. Adeline looked at him and coldly replied, I don't feel an ounce of sincerity from you at all. Meeting her gaze, Edwin said, I mean it. To be honest, Shane has become harder and harder to deal with lately. He flies into a frenzy of rage, then suddenly turns listless, like everything has been hollowed out of him. He looks like he's ready to burn this empire down at any moment. All just to bring you back. Of course, that's not only because of Shane. As Crown Prince, I also hope that one day I can make use of Mina's ability, something that can even deceive the world. Edwin gave her a meaningful smile. After Edwin left, the day for Adeline's official return to society was set, the church charity banquet. Before the wedding, it would not only present my return to the public, but also allow us to appear together, the Saintess, the Crown Prince. Shane and me. Adeline was trying on dresses. Today we'll take your measurements first. Since the schedule is tight, we'll begin production immediately. I'm really sorry, Rachel. I'm sure you have many other clients to attend to. Rachel smiled and replied, hee, how could I refuse Patrick's request? Rachel was the owner of the famous boutique Madam Harper. Her clients were all wealthy and powerful, and she was known for her pride. So she was actually my second brother's longtime business partner. No wonder he decided to handle my wardrobe personally. Hadn't he always been traveling around running small businesses? Could he actually be Rachel's biggest investor? Snapping back to herself, Adeline asked, then there's nothing else to prepare now, right? Marchioness Bertrand hurried over and cut her off. What are you saying? There's still so much to prepare. We preserve your old dresses well, but they're all outdated. We have to buy you all new ones. Adeline answered helplessly, Mother, please. Jeff stepped forward and put an arm around the Marchioness's shoulders, comforting her. It's fine. We've already chosen most of the important things. We can take our time with the rest. What we have now is time. The Marchioness froze. Covering her face, Marchioness Bertrand burst into tears. That's right. What we have now is time. Looking at her mother like this, Adeline felt a headache coming on. I'm going to lose my mind. Smiling at their mother, Jeff said, there's absolutely no need to rush, Mother. She nodded. Yes, you're right. Jeff turned and fixed his gaze on Adeline. Right, Adeline? Avoiding his eyes, Adeline answered softly. His look was suspicious. It seemed my second brother still didn't fully trust me. If I can make good use of that, maybe another chance to escape will come. Adeline stepped into the banquet hall. The guests around her stopped talking, their eyes all turning toward the entrance. Hey, look over there. Am I seeing things? No way. Isn't that Adeline? I heard she died 5 years ago. What is going on? Just as expected, everyone's attention was focused on me. She lowered her eyes slightly, feeling a bit of pressure. Fortunately, Shane was busy and couldn't come with me. Otherwise, he would never have let these gossiping people off lightly. I never thought the day would come when I'd be relieved to attend a ball with my brother. Jeff turned his head toward Adeline, a hint of teasing in his voice. Adeline, compared to your fiancé, your brother is more reliable, isn't he? Adeline replied helplessly. That's not at all. Jeff let out a quiet laugh. What a shame. That guy really should have seen this. Adeline cut him off. Stop talking about Shane. He isn't even here. As my brother said, this arrangement really was safer than coming with Shane. But then another worry crept in. If Shane found out I'd slipped out behind his back, things would probably get troublesome. Everyone was still in shock over my return from the dead, and even my family didn't completely trust me. One wrong step, and my entire plan would collapse. I had to find a new opening. At that moment, a voice came from behind her. Miss Adeline. Genevieve stopped in front of Adeline, looking overjoyed. Miss Adeline, I'm so glad to see that you're safe. Looking at the young woman before her, Adeline said, Genevieve, I heard it was you who brought me out of that mansion. Or perhaps I shouldn't call you by your name anymore. Should I call you Saintess instead? Genevieve shook her head repeatedly. No, you don't have to call me that. Everyone knows you're my benefactor, Miss Adeline. Adeline looked troubled. Benefactor? Didn't I tell you not to call me that? Genevieve looked at Adeline and said, I've been so busy dealing with all sorts of things lately that I couldn't come visit you. I'm really sorry, Adeline replied. What do you have to apologize for? She turned her head and looked elsewhere. The one who really should apologize to me is someone else. A gentle voice came from the side. Were you talking about me? Edwin approached the two of them with a smile. Jeff immediately bowed. Your Highness, Crown Prince. Edwin nodded. A pleasure to see you, young master of House Bertrand. Jeff tactfully stepped back. You two talk. I'll go get something to drink. Edwin looked at Adeline and said, It seems this bride-to-be isn't very happy about the upcoming wedding. In fact, you look very tired, and seeing me doesn't seem to have made you very happy either. Adeline replied coldly. That's only natural. I could forgive him for not stopping my engagement. But wasn't it too much to neglect Genevieve like that? That man Shane has driven everyone around him nearly to the breaking point. Standing beside them, Genevieve looked at Adeline with moved eyes. Miss Adeline, according to Lloyd's investigation, Genevieve had been handling an astonishing workload all by herself. Slaying monsters was only the beginning. She also had to travel all over the place, purifying the contamination left behind by monster corpses. On top of that, she had to frequently attend various imperial and church events. Even if Genevieve was exceptional, wasn't it far too much to put her through something this intense without even giving her time to rest? Genevieve smiled and replied, I have self-healing abilities. They're not perfect yet, but it's fine. Adeline cut her off. Wait. Genevieve. Edwin let out a soft laugh at her side. You're right, but if you hadn't faked your death back then and had actually fulfilled your duty of protecting Genevieve, Shane wouldn't have piled so much work on her out of revenge, would he? Adeline was momentarily speechless. I really didn't expect things to turn out this way. According to the original plot, they should have already defeated the final villain, the Dark Mage, and reached a happy ending by now. But according to Lloyd's investigation, ever since that attack 5 years ago, the Dark Mage had completely vanished. If the original story had been followed, he should have kept targeting Genevieve until the very end, when he was finally dealt with. Could it be that things went wrong because I didn't truly die the way I did in the novel? If that's the case, does that mean my life is still in danger? No matter what, one thing was certain. As long as that Dark Mage was still out there, this world could never reach a true happy ending. So he had to be caught as soon as possible. At present, the only lead I had was that the man was hiding among the Empire's nobles. But if I wanted to gather information without arousing suspicion, marrying Shane as originally planned was the only path. Edwin looked at the thoughtful Adeline, then turned to Genevieve beside him. Looks like Adeline is plotting another escape again. Genevieve, we should go greet the Marchioness. Genevieve snapped back to herself. Ah, yes. Looking at Adeline, she said softly, see you later, Miss Adeline. Adeline nodded. All right, see you later, Genevieve. Great. Now that my brother and Genevieve are gone, this is my chance. First, I need to search the venue for any trace of the Dark Mage. Even the smallest clue might prove useful later. But then, a young man stepped in her path. You're Adeline Bertrand, right? Or are you just some fraud who happens to look like her? Adeline stopped, already irritated. I haven't even started investigating yet, and someone's already here to make trouble. She looked at the man in front of her. And who might you be? Swaying where he stood, the man replied in a frivolous tone. Come on, even if I told you, would you know who I am? Adeline caught a sharp smell. What a strong stench of alcohol. Is this man drunk? She said coldly, you're drunk. Church events do not serve alcohol. The surrounding guests began to gather, whispers breaking out one after another. Everyone was watching them. They were already curious about the rumors of my return from the dead, and now they were even more excited. The drunken man stepped closer and sneered. What? Want a drink? Makes sense. Playing the part of a dead woman come back to life must be nerve-wracking. You're nothing but a fake pretending to be someone who died. Adeline sighed. Sir, my family, and even His Highness the Crown Prince, have already acknowledged my identity. Do I still need to prove to you that I am Adeline Bertrand? The man refused to back down. That's right, if you can prove it, though I don't think you can. Looking at him, Adeline made up her mind. The longer this drags on, the more attention it'll attract. No choice. I'll have to deal with him first. The man kept gesturing and shouting. This has been suspicious from the start. Someone who's been unconscious for 5 years is no different from a corpse. Do you really think coming back from the dead makes any logical sense? Adeline nodded thoughtfully. You're right. That does sound reasonable. The drunken man froze. What? Why are you agreeing with me? Adeline looked at him calmly. So this is basically what you mean. This woman can't prove her identity. Therefore, she must be a fraud. Under her stare, the man began to shrink back. Adeline continued. Which means this woman claiming to be Adeline Bertrand must have made Shane and Genevieve her accomplices. The man's face instantly turned pale. What? When did I ever say that? Adeline didn't stop. Even His Highness the Crown Prince is merely an unfortunate victim, fooled by these frauds. The man cried out in panic. I never said anything like that. Look at that face, panicking over something so small. If that's all it takes, why provoke me in the first place? The man shouted furiously. Hey, are you listening? Adeline looked at him coldly. The bluster he'd shown earlier was completely gone. How pitiful. In other words, you mean the Bertrand family is so foolish they couldn't accept the death of their daughter and fell for this deception. Genevieve and Shane are working together to commit fraud, while you alone possess the sharp insight to see through the truth. The surrounding guests gasp, murmurs rising on every side. You think you're not like those ignorant masses. You're confident you can expose all this incompetence and corruption, aren't you? She clasped her hands together, flashed him a bright smile, and asked, Is that what you were trying to say? The man trembled with rage, glaring at her through gritted teeth. Why you? He suddenly charged forward, raising his arm to grab at Adeline. You fake. How dare you twist my words like that? So now that you can't win with words, you're resorting to violence? Just as expected. Looking at the hand, rushing toward her, she closed her eyes and thought, fine. If he just hits me once, this farce will finally come to an end. A heavy thud rang out. The drunken man let out a scream and was sent flying backward, crashing hard to the floor. Startled, Adeline turned her head and looked at the figure who had suddenly appeared beside her. Shane. Shane wrapped an arm tightly around Adeline and pulled her into his embrace. He lowered his gaze to the person in his arms, his eyes carrying a chilling coldness. Why is Shane here? He clearly said he was too busy to attend this event. What is going on? Shane raised a hand and touched Adeline's cheek with his fingertips. His gaze was dark, his whole body radiating danger. Explain, Adeline. Lifting her face, Shane said, we didn't have to endure that sort of person, Adeline. He actually dared to lay hands on you. Looking at Shane, Adeline called softly, Shane. I'd never seen him this angry before. Looking at Adeline, Shane said, right, before I get your answer, I need to deal with him first. Shane suddenly kicked the man lying on the ground. The man cried out. Adeline grabbed Shane and shouted, Shane, stop. Shane ignored her and kicked the man again. Curling up on the floor, the man begged, I was wrong. Please spare me. Shane kicked him again. Shane, stop. He can't hear a word I'm saying. He dared to touch my fiancée. Why should I stop? Adeline rushed forward and hugged Shane from behind. Please stop, Shane. That's enough. If this gets worse, it'll ruin your life. If something happens to you, what am I supposed to do? Death was a terrifying thing. Whether it was my own death or someone else's, I had already seen it countless times in nightmares. I didn't want to see anyone die in front of me again. Adeline continued, so please let him go, Shane. I'm begging you. Adeline. Shane held the hands wrapped around his waist. Are you worried I'd really kill that man? Adeline replied, if something really happened, you'd get dragged into trouble too. Shane turned around, took Adeline's hand, and said, don't worry. How could I possibly do something like that in front of you? Adeline stared at him. A moment ago, he looked like he was about to kill someone. Shane asked, then shall we go dance? Hooking her arm through Shane's, Adeline replied, in a little while. I still feel stiff all over. Then step on my feet, Adeline replied. I'm not a child. Shane wrapped an arm around Adeline's waist, and the two embraced in the courtyard. Guests in the distance murmured, look over there. It's Duke Shane and Miss Adeline. It seems the Duke still treasures his fiancée like a precious jewel. Maybe our earlier suspicions really were unnecessary. What a splendid performance, don't you think? Jeff stopped walking and looked at the speaker. Your Highness. Edwin approached with a glass of wine and a smile. Thanks to the scene Duke Shane caused just now, all suspicion toward Adeline was immediately silenced. Everything Shane did just now was precisely calculated. It was a warning to everyone, a warning not to dare doubt or interrogate his fiancée. Edwin took a sip of wine. He's still the same as ever. Consistent to the end. Now no one will dare look down on Adeline anymore. By doing that, he basically announced to everyone that he has handed his collar over to that woman. A very useful card had returned to the board. Jeff stared ahead in silence. After the garden party ended, Rachel, carrying bolts of fabric, asked, it's so late. What brings you here? Jeff. Jeff walked into the room and replied, hello, Rachel. I'm not here for work today. I want to borrow your eyes. Rachel possessed a very special kind of vision. She could precisely discern her client's physical features and never forgot them. It was precisely because of that talent that her boutique had become such a great success. That was also why we asked her to handle Adeline's banquet gown. Jeff looked at Rachel and asked, so what do you think? Is that girl really Adeline? Rachel was silent for a moment, then answered, yes. Jeff fell into thought. The girl you brought in is definitely your sister. There are many people in the world who resemble one another, but having the exact same bone structure and body is impossible. Jeff asked, not even with magic. Rachel shook her head. Even with magic, it would be nearly impossible. Appearance can perhaps be imitated, but perfectly matching the depth of the eyes and the finer structure is a completely different matter. Jeff stared ahead and thought, I knew it. When I first saw that girl, I thought this was just some ridiculous deception orchestrated by Duke Shane. After all, the sister we buried with our own hands 5 years ago could not possibly appear again. But that Adeline, her expressions, even her tiny habits, were exactly the same as the girl in my memory. Most importantly, her eyes were filled with guilt over deceiving her family. The so-called miracle of the Saintess was nothing more than a touching tale fabricated for the public. The reality was probably this. Shane captured the Adeline who faked her death and ran away. Shane also knew very well that we weren't fooled by that so-called miracle story at all. He must have thought that letting Adeline see her parents and brothers weeping with joy over her return would crush her with guilt so completely that she would never be able to run again. We aren't naive. We were simply cooperating with Shane in putting on this performance. Even though Mother breaks into tears in public at least once every day, Adeline still panics just as much as she did the first time. That proves Shane's act is working. And yet, there's one thing that keeps troubling me. Rachel looked at Jeff and asked, "Why are you so suspicious?" If it were someone else's sister coming back from the dead, they'd be overjoyed. None of us knows why she was so desperate to escape from us in the first place. Not even Shane, the one who brought her back. Looking out the window, Jeff said, "I can't see through Adeline's true intentions. That's why I'm going to find out." Rachel replied, "All right, good luck. I'll finish Adeline's wedding dress on time." As she headed for the door, Rachel asked, "I'm leaving for the day. Aren't you going home?" With his back still to her, Jeff answered, "I'm borrowing the office. I'm meeting someone here." Even while Adeline was desperately trying to escape from them, there was one man who had remained by her side the whole time. Looking at him, Jeff said, "Welcome, little mouse. You know why I called you here, don't you? If there's anyone in this world who can see through Adeline's heart, it's this man." Jeff looked at Lloyd. "Let's make a deal." Lloyd replied, "A deal, young master? I don't have anything that would interest you." Jeff laughed. "Isn't it a little early to decide that before you've even heard me out?" That boy Adeline took in and kept by her side. I don't know why she took him in, but he truly was the one who stayed by her side during the 5 years she was gone. Jeff held out a hand and continued, "Hear me out. This won't be a bad deal for you." Lloyd sighed and replied, "Even so, my answer won't change." Jeff turned to look at him. "When did I ask you to betray your master? I didn't call you here to dig up Adeline's secrets. I only want to know what my sister is looking for. Buying information through Lucian must cost you a fortune every time, doesn't it?" Lloyd froze. Lucian Cole. He was the boss of the underworld crime syndicate that ruled the back alleys, a man who would do anything for money. 5 years ago, thanks to him, my lady was able to safely escape the estate. He completed every task perfectly, but the fees he charged were as astronomical as the risks involved. So he noticed, while our funds aren't tight yet, my lady wants to leave this place, so I need to save as much money as possible, just in case. Lloyd looked at Jeff and asked, "My information doesn't come cheap. Are you sure?" Jeff replied, "Then I'll pay you twice what Lucian charges." Looking at Lloyd, Jeff continued, "So, can you tell me why Adeline wants to leave us? You must have realized it too. If the root of the problem isn't solved, she'll never gain true freedom." Lloyd sank into memory. "From the day she saved me, when I collapsed wounded after Lucian's judgment, until now, I have never questioned my lady's orders. Carrying out her commands is my only duty. But deep down, I know there's a kind of despair hidden beneath her face that always appears calm and composed, like someone being hunted. She is not only my master, but my savior, my only family. For her, I would do anything." Lloyd looked at Jeff and said, "Actually, even I don't know the real reason my lady left, but she did order me to investigate certain things." Jeff asked, "What things?" "She's looking for the man who's targeting Genevieve, and for information about the mage who can control monsters." Jeff fell into thought. The Saintess and the mage. Why would she want information on them? Lloyd shook his head. "I don't know. Even with political pressure or interference from neighboring countries. In Green Windsor, the Saintess should be the safest person of all. And besides, a mage who can control monsters. Have you ever heard of such a thing?" Jeff replied, "No. That should be impossible. Monsters are like impurities within natural magic power. Even if they appear intelligent, they're closer to a phenomenon imitating living instinct. Humans cannot control them. If it were black magic, perhaps it might be possible, but no human should be able to control monsters, those abnormal beings in the first place. If that were true, then it would mean someone has power beyond reason. That mage would no longer be human. They would have reached the realm of gods." Jeff withdrew his gaze and looked at Lloyd. "For now, I'll investigate this matter myself. I'll inform you when I know more. Until then, stand by." Lloyd replied, "Understood." Then, as if suddenly remembering something, Lloyd added, "She also told me to investigate the Saintess's husband." Jeff asked in confusion, "Why investigate the Saintess's husband now?" Lloyd explained, "My lady said that if he's some kind of freak, she'll make him divorce the Saintess." Jeff thought helplessly, has she started treating the Saintess like her own daughter or something? "I was going to tell my lady that young master called me a mouse, but now I suppose I can't. After all, I betrayed her orders behind her back." Jeff's voice came from in front of him. "Working with us is in your master's best interest, little mouse. After all we want is to protect our youngest sister." Lloyd's eyes darkened, and the one standing in the way of that doesn't seem to be Shane Blancard, is it? Jeff stared ahead and said, "For now, Shane is our ally. At least our goals are the same. We refuse to lose Adeline a second time. Right now, no one is better at stopping Adeline from running away than Shane. The Bertrand family will not make the same mistake again." Night fell, and the grand palace looked especially quiet beneath the moonlight. "Saintess, it is time to rest." Genevieve stopped what she was doing and answered, "All right. I'll come right away." A trace of loneliness appeared in Genevieve's eyes. "I don't want to go back. Even if I do, no one will be waiting for me there. This kind of loneliness wasn't unfamiliar to me. My husband, as the Crown Prince's guard, lived almost all the time in the palace, while I, as the Saintess, could not leave the church freely. To be honest, our marriage wasn't built on love, so living apart wasn't unbearable. I married only because I longed to have a family. But disappointingly, I still feel this empty. I once thought that if I had a child, things might improve. But with a schedule this busy, pregnancy and childbirth are out of the question. Besides, no one can be sure whether the goddess's blessing would extend to a child. The goddess grants her servants all kinds of powers. Not feeling hunger even without food, surviving without sleep, continuing to move no matter how exhausted the body becomes. It feels more like a curse of endless labor. And that feeling only grows stronger whenever I remember how these powers awakened. Miss Adeline, I don't think you truly understand this pain. Do you know what you mean to me? In my life, you were the only person who stood completely on my side. But when you died right before my eyes, I felt I would never be able to forgive myself. For these past 5 years, I endured the crushing workload Shane forced on me. It was my way of atoning for the death of the person who saved my life. A maid walked in and said, "Winter is coming. That means you'll be leaving again soon for the long winter purification expedition, won't you?" Genevieve replied, "His Holiness the Pope is unwell, so he asked me to remain by his side this winter. I think he has many tasks for me." The maid continued, "And soon enough, you'll also be busy officiating the wedding in Duke Blancard's territory. Duke Shane is really too much. Of all people, he insisted on having the Saintess officiate the ceremony." Genevieve looked at the maid and said, "I have to do it. Both the Duke and Miss Bertrand are my benefactors." The maid looked at Genevieve as if wanting to say something, but about His Grace the Duke. "And your Grace." Looking at the maid's expression, Genevieve could tell what she wanted to ask. "Aren't the two of you lovers? Where exactly did these rumors come from? I'm already married, so why does this keep happening?" It's true that whenever I stand before Shane, my heart never stops pounding wildly, but that's only because I'm terrified. I've had enough of this. I need to have a child as soon as possible. Then those rumors will disappear for good. Suddenly, the silence was split by the whistle of something cutting through the air. Genevieve froze. An arrow flew past her and lodged in the wall behind her. "The Saintess!" The maid screamed in terror. "Your Grace, get down." 2 weeks after the attack on Genevieve, at Green Windsor Cathedral, the bells echoed above the grand building. The officiant announced the groom, Shane, and the bride, Adeline, may enter. Shane was dressed in magnificent formal wear, and Adeline had her arm linked with his as they walked side by side toward the chapel. Shane's expression was cold. Adeline lowered her eyes. "It's finally come to this day. This day really has come. At the very least, I should have fallen in love while trying to escape, found someone who could carry me out of the wedding hall." Standing before the altar, Genevieve solemnly declared, "In the name of the goddess, I now pronounce you husband and wife. May blessings be with your future together." Genevieve looked so happy. She had no idea how I felt right now. If everything had gone according to the original plan, you should have been the bride today. Lowering his head, Shane looked at the wife beside him and said, "Adeline, lift your head. You should smile." He reached out, wrapped an arm around Adeline's waist, and drew her closer. "You're the bride today." Adeline frowned, filled with resistance. This is obviously a forced marriage. How could I possibly smile? Shane seemed to read her thoughts and said softly, "If it were me, I think I could smile." Adeline looked at him in confusion. "Thanks to this marriage, the people you love are all safe now. That's all because of my wife." Adeline looked up at him. "Shane, you really are insane." Shane replied, "Thank you for the compliment." Applause rose throughout the chapel. Under everyone's gaze, Shane turned toward Adeline and leaned closer. "That's right. Keep smiling like that." Startled, Adeline shrank back a little. "Wait." Shane lifted her chin, forcing her to look at him. "Even now, I still don't understand why Shane insisted on this wedding. But one thing is certain. This marriage isn't based on love. Otherwise, he couldn't have ignored my refusal and forced all of this through. So this marriage must be for revenge against the fiancé who deceived him. It has to be. But Shane, why are you smiling so happily, as if you've gained the whole world?" Shane lowered his head and kissed Adeline. "It almost gave me the illusion that you really might love me." A few hours later, in the receiving room of the ducal estate, Genevieve was completely drunk. She slammed the table and shouted, "Do you have any idea how guilty I felt all this time?" Adeline replied awkwardly, "Oh, really?" The heroine had turned into a drunken mess. Slumped over the table, Genevieve mumbled incoherently, "Why did you do that? Why?" Looking at the swaying Genevieve, Adeline asked, "Are you all right?" Genevieve, sitting nearby, Edwin said, "Sorry to interrupt your wedding night, but think of this as a small party. We didn't even hold a formal reception, after all. Since you helped so much with this absurd wedding, you could just endure it, right, Shane?" Sitting off to the side, Shane replied indifferently, "I know. That's why I put up with it until now." Edwin continued, "If the church had let her go earlier, she would have come sooner." Sitting there, Adeline looked at the people in front of her and sighed inwardly. "I just want to go rest now, but I can't leave first and abandon Edwin and the saint is here." Edwin looked at Shane and said, "Genevieve's been on edge because of the recent attack." Adeline suddenly stood up. "Attack?" Taking a sip of red wine, Edwin casually replied, "Ah, did I not tell you? 2 weeks ago, someone made an attempt on Genevieve's life. Adeline pressed. What about the culprit? Edwin shook his head. Still not caught. That's why the Saintess had to sneak out. Adeline stood frozen. How could this happen? It was so sudden. Genevieve had said that for the past 5 years, she had always been safe. Taking Genevieve's hand, Adeline said, Genevieve, you must have been terrified. I heard you still insisted on working even after the attack. That was very brave. Genevieve shook her head. Miss Adeline, none of that matters. What really saddens me is that you don't cherish yourself at all. You only just came back, and all you can think about is worrying over me. Tears welled in Genevieve's eyes. I want to protect you too, Miss Adeline. It frustrates me so much. Looking at the crying Genevieve, Adeline said, I'm sorry, Genevieve. Genevieve protested. I don't need an apology. Please take this. She fastened a bracelet around Adeline's wrist. I blessed this bracelet myself. I don't even want to imagine that possibility, but if you're ever in danger, crush this bracelet and call for me. When that happens, I will definitely come save you, Miss Adeline. After saying that, Genevieve collapsed drunk onto the table. Adeline cried out, Genevieve. Looking at the fallen Genevieve, Edwin sighed, oh dear. She drank too much. A pang spread through Adeline's heart. Truthfully, I never wanted to hide the truth either. I used to imagine countless times that someday in the future, I'd smile and give the two of you my blessing, then say to you, see, in the end, you still found happiness. How wonderful it would be if we could sit together, talk, and laugh like that. But reality wouldn't grant me even that small happiness. To escape that disgusting nightmare, I hurt and deceived the people I loved. Even though I didn't die the way I did in the original story, the moment Genevieve awakened as the Saintess, I thought my role had already been fulfilled. But this world seems unwilling to let me go so easily. If Genevieve is facing danger she was never supposed to encounter just because I, Adeline, who should have died, am still alive, then what am I supposed to do? Late at night, in the receiving room, Adeline turned over on the sofa and let out a faint murmur. She slowly opened her eyes, still half-conscious. When did I fall asleep? I know I should wash up, but my body feels too heavy to move. I'm so sleepy. At the very least, I should go back to the bedroom to sleep. Just then, a low voice sounded near her ear. Go back to sleep. Shane lifted Adeline from the sofa in his arms. In her drowsy state, Adeline recognized him. Shane, where are Prince Edwin and Genevieve? I've already sent His Highness away. The servants also took the Saintess to a guest room to rest. Adeline murmured softly, I see. He was the one who dragged me back here by force. So why is he acting so gentle now? If he were just angry at me, or speaking coldly like before, maybe, it wouldn't feel this strange. Carrying Adeline, Shane entered the bedroom and placed her on the large bed. Adeline turned over, giving him her back, and said, leave, sitting down by the bedside. Shane replied with a smile. If the groom gets thrown out on the very first day of his marriage, what will people think? Shane pulled her into his arms. I just want to hold you while we sleep. Adeline turned to look at him. If you don't sleep now, you'll be too exhausted to even get out of bed tomorrow. She replied helplessly, honestly, my head feels like it's about to explode. I'm really tired. Ever since I came back, Mother has been crying behind my back. For the past few days, her eyes haven't dried once. Even Patrick, who's always so composed, has been fussing over me, and Jeff kept nagging me right up until he left on a long business trip. You're really beautiful, Adeline. Seeing you get married feels like a dream. Since you helped me so much, I want to do something for you too. Shane, this is all because you forced me to stay here. If I don't think of it that way, I won't be able to endure any of this. Adeline said softly, Shane, I really hate you. Shane replied, I know. Adeline buried her face in the pillow and repeated, I hate you. Shane opened his eyes and looked at Adeline beside him. After a long silence, he answered quietly, I hate you too. He reached out and ran his fingers through her long hair. Adeline, that's exactly why I'll never let you go. The first morning after the wedding, Lloyd was standing in the corridor. Good morning, my lady. Adeline pressed a hand to her forehead. What are you doing so early in the morning? Lloyd respectfully replied, I just finished the servants' morning roll call. Several maids saw Adeline and immediately bowed. Good morning, Your Grace. Looking at the scene before her, Adeline marveled inwardly. You managed to sort out the hierarchy here in a single day. Lloyd calmly replied, it wasn't especially difficult. When Duke Blancard left for his territory, he took Verdi and most of the senior staff with him. There aren't many servants left in the manor now, so it was easy to inspect them. Adeline grew thoughtful. There are so few servants. Are they trying to cut labor costs? Lloyd shook his head. No, it's just because he rarely comes home. That means there's almost nothing in the estate that actually needs managing. Adeline looked relieved. Really? That's great. Then it'll be much easier for me to move around freely. The atmosphere in the Blancard estate had indeed changed drastically. As Adeline walked down the corridors, she looked around at her surroundings. It used to feel grander and far more intimidating. Now, although it was clean, It felt somewhat deserted. She stopped before a huge portrait. It was a painting of Duke Blancard and the Duchess of Blancard together. It reminded her of the vow she had once made never to become a duchess. Back then, the Blancard estate had been like a fortress surrounded by authority. Duke Blancard had been a member of the noble senate, and the Duchess of Blancard had been an imperial princess. Both of them possessed the purest noble blood. Perhaps because he inherited both their bloodlines, Shane had shown extraordinary maturity from a young age. Adeline recalled the past. Until he left Elmez, Shane had still only been that boy everyone called the Little Duke. At the time, he had been living with the old Count too. So when exactly did Shane begin to live all alone? Lloyd stepped up behind Adeline and reminded her, "My lady, the Duke is waiting for you inside. I should go see Lucian." Adeline pulled herself out of her thoughts. "Eat breakfast with me first, then go." Lloyd said with some resignation, "I'd rather not face the Duke. That bastard hates me anyway." Adeline fell silent for a moment. Right? They always avoided each other. No, it was more like openly ignoring each other. "Then please enjoy your meal. I'll come back later and check whether you left any vegetables behind." Watching Lloyd walk away, Adeline couldn't help but laugh. Sometimes I really can't tell which one of us is supposed to be the guardian. Maybe because the wedding had just ended, she felt strangely tense. Taking a deep breath, she pushed open the door. "All right, nothing special should happen." Shane swirled the wine glass in his hand. "Did you sleep well, Adeline?" Adeline walked into the room. "Why are you here alone?" Shane turned and replied, "Genevieve left while you were still asleep." Adeline shook her head. "No, that's not what I meant. I mean, why are you waiting here by yourself without even an attendant?" Shane walked to the table and pulled out a chair. "Sit down. I'll serve the meal." Watching him, Adeline asked, "Why are you doing it yourself instead of calling someone?" Shane set the plates down as he answered, "If you want, I can call someone in." Adeline sat down. "No, that's not necessary. He's probably planning to do whatever he wants again. I can't let Shane lead me by the nose." Adeline tested the waters. "I heard you're often away from home because you're busy at midday, Shane." Shane pushed the food toward her. "Don't worry about that. Eat." Then he added, "I'll be staying in this house for a while." Adeline jerked her head up. "What?" Shane looked at her and asked, "Is it really that surprising for a newly married man to stay at home?" Flustered, Adeline explained, "That's not what I mean, but aren't you very busy? As a member of the Senate, shouldn't you be governing the country with the Crown Prince? Even if you just got married, I know you can't possibly be this idle." Shane cut a piece of food and replied calmly, "Then I'll simply reduce the things that don't need doing. According to protocol, I should go to the territory and greet my father, but that can wait." Adeline said helplessly, "Since you know the protocol, then please follow it. You're noble. There are still too many things I need to figure out. Who exactly was the real culprit behind the attack on Genevieve? I can't be certain yet, but a mage is the most likely possibility. In the original story, they had tried to kill Genevieve by any means necessary. If they're hiding somewhere, then they must be nearby, somewhere they can easily get close to her. Now that the plot has diverged from the original, I don't know what will happen next. I have to stay by Genevieve's side and protect her." Shane suddenly called out Adeline, "Are you thinking about running away again?" Startled, Adeline stammered, "And no, I'm not." Though it wasn't as if the thought had never crossed her mind. Looking straight at her, Shane said, "In case you've forgotten, I have no intention of letting you escape again. I won't let you run around by yourself, my dear." A group of noble women were chatting together. "We haven't seen the Duke and Duchess of Blancard lately. Perhaps they're immersed in a passionate honeymoon. Even so, it would be nice if they showed up in society. That daughter of the Bertrand family, I mean the current Duchess of Blancard, came back as if she'd risen from the dead. Wherever she goes now, she'll become the center of attention. I wonder if something happened. Maybe she'll attend the service." Rain washed over the Grand Cathedral. Two clergymen walked along the steps, speaking in low voices. "Will Duke Shane come? He rarely attends services. But starting this week, Saintess Genevieve will personally officiate. Do you still believe that ridiculous rumor? There must be something between them." His companion immediately gestured for him to be quiet. "Hey, watch your mouth. Didn't you hear what happened at the ball? They say the Duke almost beat to death the man who insulted his wife with his own hands." The other man exclaimed, "What?" The reports about that scandal were all over the place, but after the wedding, everything died down. There are even rumors that Duke Shane personally intervened with the press. "I had no idea." The other snapped, "Stop believing every rumor you hear and use your brain." Shane, dressed in a white hooded robe, said, "I didn't kill anyone, and I didn't interfere with the press." Walking beside him, Adeline wore a hood as well. "I wasn't asking you. Thanks to Genevieve, I got the perfect excuse. Without her, I'd have been trapped in that mansion forever. My dear Adeline, I hope you're enjoying your blissful honeymoon. Starting this week, I'll be officiating the service. Will you come?" She lowered her hood and looked around. Fortunately, it was a weekday, so there weren't many people. Otherwise, all eyes would have been on us. If only I could have come alone. As if reading her mind, Shane smiled and replied, "That's impossible, Adeline." Adeline looked at him helplessly. "No, seriously, how do you always know what I'm thinking? Is mind reading a required skill for male leads?" Ever since that day, Shane had not left Adeline's side once. He did not even go out anymore. Aside from being trapped at home, married life had not changed much. Only one thing was different now. Adeline had begun sleeping in the same bed as Shane. though all that really meant was sleeping in his arms. I thought that becoming husband and wife would mean he'd ask for that kind of thing, but he hasn't. Honestly, that's a relief. I don't understand what he wants from me. Although the physical contact has definitely been increasing little by little, he always stops just before crossing the line. Just like now, Shane reached out and put a hand around Adeline's waist, his movement natural and firm. Adeline looked at their overlapping hands and said with helpless resignation, "You don't have to keep holding on to me. I'm not going to run away. It's not like I have anywhere to go anyway, so can you let go?" Without looking at her, Shane replied calmly, "No." His grip tightened a little. "I insist on personally guiding my wife." "What kind of consideration is that? Who shows consideration like this?" "This is how I show kindness." Adeline replied dryly, "Then you'd better be careful. If you're this kind to the wrong person, you'll get reported." Looking at her, Shane said, "That won't happen, Adeline, because I only act this way toward you." Adeline froze in place. Why does this bastard have to be so handsome? This was Genevieve's first service. People from every walk of life had gathered here with tremendous anticipation. Sitting among them, Adeline thought, I wonder if someone will try to slip in and hurt her. I have to keep a close eye on Genevieve. Standing before the crowd, she was humanity's living treasure, the saintess revered by all. Every year, Genevieve spent half the year traveling across the continent performing acts of grace. The other half, she used to take part in important imperial affairs. In other words, she belonged to the church. Because Genevieve's position was more special than that of an ordinary priest, she rarely took part in the church's internal day-to-day operations. Some people within the church even jokingly refer to themselves as the saintess's errand boys. Despite those internal divisions, the Pope never hid his fondness for Genevieve. On the surface, he praised her character and treated her like a beloved granddaughter, but reality was far less warm. During the long periods when the saintess was absent, public attention toward the church had dropped sharply. But ever since Genevieve arrived, donations had come pouring in without end. The current Pope was a man obsessed with power and wealth. For him, having to share a powerful symbol like Genevieve with the imperial family must have been deeply frustrating. The reason he assigned so many guards was probably that he feared Genevieve might be injured and unable to participate in events harming the church's interests. But I still can't let my guard down. Those people once boldly sent assassins to a royal banquet. Although I calmed things down back then by faking my death, it's obvious that mages can control not only monsters, but humans too. The people called mages are different from others. They're not like witches or sorcerers, who possess only weak magic and rely on herbs. Nor are they like white mages, who use holy magic. Mages are people who wield deadly black magic through curses and rituals. Because of that cruelty, society brands them as evil and ostracizes them. Yet because their magic is so effective, many nobles still secretly study. Curses and hypnosis. Both are considered black magic, but as long as the victim can be identified, Genevieve can use her holy power to lift those curses. That was exactly why, in the original story, the mages tried to get rid of Genevieve. Although the current Genevieve isn't yet as powerful as she was in the original, the Genevieve of the original story could dispel curses without even touching the victim. To mages, her existence itself is a tremendous threat. The person who killed me 5 years ago, no, the person who really tried to kill Genevieve, had also been controlled by black magic. So no matter how tight security is, even someone with no personal grudge could suddenly attack Genevieve. When Genevieve saw the figure approaching, she cried out in delight, "Miss Adeline." She hurried over. "My goodness, I never thought you'd come. You should have told me in advance." Smiling, Adeline replied, "I wanted to surprise you, but am I allowed into this area?" Genevieve nodded. "Of course. Almost everyone here is a believer. Have you had lunch? If not, we could." Shane interrupted. "She's busy." Adeline quickly waved him off. "Oh no, I'm not busy at all. Let's go, Genevieve. I want to hear what you've been doing lately while we eat." Genevieve suggested. "Then would you like to eat in my room?" Shane refused. "No, men aren't allowed into the saintess's residence." Adeline replied. "Oh, then Shane can just eat in the dining hall." Shane shot back. "Don't be ridiculous. If I can't join you, then you can go back to the manor and eat there." Looking at the two of them arguing, Genevieve said, "You two really do get along well." "We do not." Genevieve looked at Shane. "Don't worry, Duke Blancard. I have plenty of guards with me, and they'll protect Miss Adeline as well." Adeline looked at Genevieve and thought, "Genevieve, you've learned how to make use of your guards. But accidents always happened at moments like this. I can't relax for even a second." Sensing something wrong, Adeline suddenly turned her head. A priest with a vacant expression rushed out, stretched out both hands, and lunged at the unguarded Genevieve. Adeline rushed forward at once and threw herself in front of her. Genevieve screamed, "Miss Adeline." The priest seized Adeline by the throat and slammed her against the wall. Adeline struggled in agony, choking out broken sounds. I can't breathe." The surrounding guards shouted in alarm. "What are you doing? Let her go." Genevieve was pushed behind them, staring in horror. "Miss Adeline! Miss Adeline!" One of the guards grabbed Genevieve and shouted, "Saintess, this way, please." Seeing Adeline under attack, Genevieve let out a desperate scream. No, a flash of cold light swept past. Coughing violently, Adeline collapsed to the floor. The priest's wrist had been severed in an instant. The severed hand fell to the ground, and blood splattered everywhere. The priest fell to the floor, howling, my hand. The guards swarmed over him, pinning down the struggling attacker as they shouted, "Get him! This bastard dared to harm the saintess. Protect the saintess." Genevieve desperately struggled against the guards restraining her. "Let go of me. I need to see if Miss Adeline is all right." Adeline sat slumped against the wall, coughing violently. At least Genevieve is safe. If I'd been even 1 second later, the consequences would have been unimaginable. Thank God. Shane walked over to Adeline. "Adeline, when you see danger, does it never occur to you to run away? I was just worried Genevieve would get hurt. Help me up. I don't have any strength left." Shane's emotions suddenly erupted. "So the saintess can't be hurt, but you can?" When he had his hands around your neck, you couldn't fight back at all. Who gave you the confidence to rush in like that? Adeline looked at Shane and called softly, "Shane, Shane suddenly stepped forward and pulled Adeline tightly into his arms. "If I failed to protect you again, just imagining what might happen to you, it drives me insane." Adeline was held fast in his embrace. "Shane, why are you saying things like that? The way you sound makes it seem like you were the one who just barely escaped death." She felt Shane's body trembling, so she raised a hand and gently stroked his hair. Adeline whispered, "I'm sorry. I made you worry." After the attack, Genevieve was immediately transferred to the Imperial Palace. Since this was the second attack to occur within the church itself, and it had been carried out by someone from within, such precautionary measures were only natural. According to reports, Genevieve had tried to protest to the holy knights escorting her, but she quickly fell silent and merely stared at the floor in a daze. In the dim interrogation room, the Crown Prince flipped through the records and said, "So, to sum up your statement, you believe the saintess had fallen because she used the goddess's power for personal reasons. That's why you did this." The priest, bound in chains, trembled as he replied, But it was only a thought. I never intended to kill her. But the moment I saw the saintess, my body moved on its own, as if I were possessed by a demon." The Crown Prince asked coldly, "Do you even know who it was that you actually harmed?" The priest lowered his head and avoided his gaze. That was. I don't know. I really don't know. Please believe me." Shane gripped the hilt of his sword. "And what does not knowing change? Hand him over to me. Whether he's executed on the scaffold or dies here, the result is the same." The priest shrank back in terror and screamed. The Crown Prince tried to stop him. "Calm down. This man's target was Genevieve from the beginning. Lock him up first. I heard he used to be extraordinarily devout. The investigation found no specific mastermind behind him. The Pope is furious now. If there had been movement like this within the church, I should have heard of it already." Just as he said, this was probably a momentary impulse. Or more likely, someone had been controlling him. Shane asked, "So you suspect black magic?" The Crown Prince stopped walking. If he had been controlled by black magic, he should still be in a delirious state by now. But he said that impulse only lasted for a moment. He claims he regained his senses the very next second after acting. Maybe Genevieve purified him. The Crown Prince laughed. "You think very highly of Genevieve. Is that because you're her guardian?" Then he added, "Unfortunately, she isn't as capable as the saintesses of previous generations. At present, she can only heal external injuries. She can't even cure illnesses. Even dispelling a single curse takes several days out of her. Whether she likes it or not, evaluations of her abilities will reach her ears, so the least we can do is regard her efforts with kindness." Shane murmured, "That's unfortunate. How rare. You're actually thinking of Genevieve." After a moment of silence, Shane replied quietly, "I'm talking about Adeline. Whenever it involves the saintess, Adeline will throw herself into danger without hesitation. If she knew Genevieve was in that state, then no matter how I tried to stop her, she'd risk her life again." After hearing that, the Crown Prince said, "Since you understand that, I'm surprised you haven't already locked Adeline up in the estate. Anyway, don't forget about the Founding Day celebration in 2 months. Since you promised to help me." Shane answered, "I understand. I once thought you meant to harm Adeline, chasing after the woman who ran away, threatening her, imprisoning her. But now it seems you were only protecting her in your own twisted way. Forcing her into this marriage is no different from tormenting her. A husband so crazed by the thought of his wife nearly being hurt that he wants to kill the criminal. What a strange form of torture that is. No, for Adeline, the very fact that I am her husband is already enough to terrify her." Adeline lay asleep in the wide bed. Her face was flushed red, and her breathing was heavy. Shane stepped to the bedside and laid a hand against her forehead. Her temperature was even higher than before. The fever had lasted for several days now, with no sign of breaking. "I need to tell the doctor to change her medicine." Shane stood up and headed for the door. He turned back for one last look at Adeline, lying in the sickbed. It had become a habit. In the end, worrying about her would only make him weak. It was a miserable habit called unrequited love. Shane bent down and gathered Adeline into his arms. After imprisoning her, Shane had deliberately not gone to see her. For him, everything had been part of a long-laid plan. But for Adeline, it had been a sudden catastrophe. Adeline needed enough time to accept reality. Otherwise, she would break down completely, just like he once had. Fortunately, when Adeline woke, her reaction was just as Shane had expected. Though she had been startled and confused, she had barely managed to remain calm. Clever Adeline had probably realized the moment she opened her eyes that they had all become hostages. That was why she had been so obedient, showing no sign of resistance. Shane was in no hurry. He only needed to wait patiently until Adeline struggled over and over within those tangled emotions, until guilt tormented her completely. Then she would bind herself with her own hands, willingly stay by Shane's side, and become prey imprisoned by him. In the end, this was a contest of time. Don't be impatient, Shane. He had already made up his mind, until he witnessed Adeline's reckless behavior again in that belated banquet hall. On that day, how far had you planned things? Did you intend to let that trash hit you on purpose, then use your injuries as an excuse to retreat into seclusion? Or had you meant to go even further and delay the wedding altogether? Seeing through your intentions wasn't difficult. I had intended to watch quietly and see just how far you'd go. But the moment that man raised his hand, something inside Shane snapped completely. Adeline cried out in horror. Shane? Adeline grabbed the edge of Shane's clothes and said, "Stop, that's enough. If he dies." A faint cold smile touched Shane's lips. Adeline tested him. "Shane, you're not still thinking about that man, are you? Like planning to secretly kill him later?" Shane let out a soft laugh. So you noticed." Wearing a serious expression, Adeline warned him, "Absolutely don't do it." "I told you not to." He replied quietly, "Don't worry. Since you told me not to kill him, I won't. I'll try to restrain myself." Leaning against Shane, Adeline said, "That is not the sort of thing you describe as restraining yourself." Shane lowered his eyes, hiding the emotions in them. He said softly, "What a relief." "Adeline, you're still as soft-hearted as ever." Confused, Adeline asked, "What are you talking about?" Shane replied, "Just talking to myself. You can even feel sympathy for trash like that. How unpleasant. But knowing you're still so kind also makes me glad, because that compassion will become the strongest lever to bind you. Adeline, the more you try to push me away and run, the more stubbornly my feelings cling to you. So I will never let you go again. As someone once said, have I truly gone mad in the end to still love the woman who abandoned me and ran away? No, this unrequited love never ended from the very beginning. At that wedding, with everyone smiling, applauding, and offering congratulations, Adeline seemed not to care at all who was standing beside her. She only walked straight ahead without a sideways glance. Back then, I suppose I really was a little sulky. Looking at Adeline, Shane said, "Adeline, look up." Shane reached out, lifted her chin, and made her face him. Adeline raised her head. Her gaze was still cool, but there was also a trace of tension that was hard to detect. Just this adorable face, no longer avoiding his touch or his gaze, was enough to make him feel happy. The happiness itself felt absurd. Shane bent down and kissed Adeline. Perhaps in this lifetime, I will never escape this miserable, unrequited love. Sunlight fell across the outer walls of the Grand Palace, making everything seem peaceful and distant. In the estate courtyard, Lloyd handed a list to the butler. "Dismiss these employees. Keep only the people whose names are on this list." The butler took it and looked at the densely packed names, then asked hesitantly, Mr. Lloyd, by what criteria did you select them?" Lloyd replied expressionlessly, "People who talk too much. People who are easily tempted by money. Every person I chose has an obvious weakness. It only took me 2 days to investigate all of them." The butler repeated in surprise. 2 days? He had assumed this young man, whom the Duchess had personally brought back, had only come to stay quietly. He had never imagined that in just a few days, Lloyd would completely grasp the weaknesses of every servant in the estate. A maid nearby stepped forward and asked worriedly, is the Duchess all right? "I know the doctor is treating her, but I'm worried because the Duke isn't allowing anyone into her room." Lloyd looked at the maid and said, "Yes, it's only a cold. She'll recover soon. Besides, that man has been stuck to her the whole time." Adeline slowly opened her eyes. Her throat felt torn with waves of pain. "Did I cough all night again? My throat hurts so much." Weakly, Adeline reached out, groping beside the bed, and murmured, "Lloyd." "Who?" A hand reached out and took Adeline's. "I called for Lloyd, not you. Could you stay a little farther away from me?" Shane lay beside Adeline, holding her tightly as he replied, "He's busy, and I'm probably more useful than your attendant." Adeline asked helplessly, "Why do you always have to compete with a child?" Shane remained silent. Adeline couldn't help coughing again. "Is Lloyd that adorable?" Shane tucked the blanket more securely around her and said, "Don't talk. Your throat still hurts. It couldn't be helped. That child refused to leave your side for even a moment. Even though he has eyes very much like mine, I still dislike him, no matter how useful he is." Shane got up, preparing to leave the bed. Wait, I'll get your medicine and some water. Adeline reached out and grabbed his sleeve. Looking at her, Shane said, I need to get the medicine. With her eyes closed, Adeline let out a faint, indistinct murmur. Shane looked at her. My young fiancée, Adeline, once held me tightly and told me she would never let me be alone again. She told me it was all right to cry, but in the end, she still became a betrayer and left me behind alone. Smiling, Adeline had said, Shane, you must be happy. She always said things like that, but she never once told me how I was supposed to become happy. You hurt me and then left as if it meant nothing. Shane sat by the bed. Adeline, I hate you. I hate that you abandoned me. You made me understand how terrifying the world is without you. You're so hateful and yet so lovable. I can't break this habit. A few days after the attack on the Saintess in the Green Windsor Imperial Palace, Harrison strode quickly down a corridor. Your Highness. The Crown Prince stopped and asked, is the Saintess resting? Harrison replied, she is resting, but the shock of the attack seems to have affected her deeply. She shut herself in her room and hasn't eaten for several days. The Crown Prince sighed. That brave girl. Who would have thought she'd end up like this? She's even made her beloved husband stand guard outside the door. Looking awkward, Harrison explained, she didn't make me stand here. I wanted to wait outside myself. After all, she's still unwell. I see. In that case, I won't disturb you. Go comfort our precious treasure. Show off all that youthful charm that captivated the Saintess. Harrison said in a low voice, Your Highness, that joke goes too far. The Crown Prince patted Harrison on the shoulder. If he says a few more words, his whole face will turn red. How did someone as wooden as him even manage to confess? As for the marriage between Harrison and the Saintess, people said the whole process had been absurd. Standing before Genevieve, Harrison had said, How would I dare hope to become the Saintess's partner? As long as I can remain by her side. That is enough, so that he would never again entertain any impure thoughts. Genevieve had replied, Then let's get married. Harrison froze. What? Genevieve continued, You said you like me, right? I like you too, so let's get married. Just you and me. It truly had been an epic proposal. Harrison knocked on the door. Excuse me, it's me. May I come in? Watching Harrison push the door open, the Crown Prince thought, perfect timing. People are saying Genevieve's holy power became stronger after marriage. Could this be the so-called power of love? But something still fell off to him. It didn't seem as though Genevieve's power had suddenly grown after marriage. Rather, it had begun after her reunion with Adeline. Lloyd looked at Adeline and asked, My lady, do you have several lives? Or perhaps some secret fetish for enjoying pain? Adeline shot back, of course not. My body just moved on its own then. Lloyd said helplessly, and that's how you got yourself into this mess. Adeline replied, But thanks to you, I got a lead on that sorcerer. Raising one finger, Adeline said, Listen carefully. I think that man was being controlled by a sorcerer. Otherwise, why would a normal person suddenly go mad and attack the Saintess while she was under protection? That means the sorcerer was among us at the time. Lloyd lowered his head and asked, So you charged straight at someone who was out of his mind? Looking out the window, Adeline thought, because I had something to rely on. Shane was there too. Sitting on the bed, Adeline looked at Lloyd and said, Looks like you've forgotten why you're here. He bribed the press, set a trap, kidnapped me, and locked me up. And that wasn't enough. He even forced me to marry him. Yet you trust a man like that? Adeline turned her head, her expression complicated. Well, it's not entirely like that. Shane had no intention of letting me go in the first place. He wouldn't even allow me to die according to my own wishes. So if I stay by Shane's side, isn't that the safest place I can be? Lloyd answered, My lady, I'm glad to see you're actually thinking. Somewhat displeased, Adeline asked, What exactly do you take me for? Adeline fell into thought. It had always been this way, but after that attack, escaping immediately had become even harder. I should start with what I can do right now. Adeline recalled the only clue about the sorcerer from the original story. The sorcerer was a noble from the Green Windsor Empire. Adeline turned to Lloyd and instructed, Lloyd, bring me a list of all the nobles who were present on the day of the attack. Lloyd confirmed, Only the nobles? Adeline answered firmly, Yes, only the nobles. If I said being attacked was a stroke of luck, Lloyd would definitely get angry. But it really did narrow down the field of suspects when I had no leads at all. The sorcerer must have been there at the scene to control the attacker. He had no choice but to observe the situation from nearby. He might still be watching in secret now, waiting for the next chance. Adeline suddenly flopped back on the bed and irritably ran a hand through her hair. There are too many things to worry about. Where's Shane at this hour? What is he doing? Adeline abruptly sat up. No, why am I thinking about Shane? It feels like I'm waiting for him. It's not just because all these incidents one after another have put my nerves on edge. I'm afraid of falling asleep alone. Thinking of Shane is only because I'm worried I'll have nightmares if I'm by myself. Adeline closed her eyes. Stop thinking about it. I have to forget all this and fall asleep quickly. She turned over and pulled the blanket tighter around herself. The sound of the door hinge turning echoed through the silent room, followed by steady footsteps. Lying on the bed, Adeline felt a hand touch her hair. I thought you were asleep. Adeline opened her eyes and replied, I was just about to sleep. Shane drew his hand back. I came back late. The additional interrogation of the suspect took a long time. Since someone tried to assassinate the Saintess, we have to investigate thoroughly. Shane's fingers traced toward Adeline's neck and shoulder. And unfortunately, I'm her guardian. I never should have become her guardian. Adeline shrank her neck back and said, It's already fine. My cold is completely gone. The doctor said I don't need any more medicine. See, there isn't even a mark left on my neck for being strangled. Looking at Shane, Adeline added, So, thank you for saving me. After a moment of silence, Shane replied in a low voice, What kind of answer is that? His voice doesn't sound all right at all. Adeline remembered the moment of the attack. Shane had held her tightly, yet his body had been trembling, as if he were the one whose throat had been seized. Even now, Shane was still looking at her that way, as though he were suffering the same pain himself. Adeline's heart jolted. No, Sane, you can't look at me like this. If what remains in you is attachment, a desire for revenge, or hatred toward the fiancé who deceived you, I can accept all of that. If you want to torment me until all that resentment disappears, I can endure it no matter how long it takes. But if you truly love me, Shane, Adeline continued, why are you treating me like this? Shane lowered his head and said in a deep voice, I've already done everything you wanted. Everything I could do, Adeline. But there's one thing I can never accept. I cannot stay by your side. Looking at Shane, Adeline said, We're already married. We share a bedroom. Every night, I fall asleep in your arms. I thought that once you were satisfied, you'd let me go. So how much more do I have to do before it's enough? Ever since returning here, I admit I've given Shane too much room. Adeline continued, Do you want me to become unhappy? I'm already unhappy. Staying by your side hurts me, Shane. In a low voice, Shane said, Please stop because every day I fall asleep peacefully in his warmth. Deep down, I've actually begun to feel that staying by his side is safe, even though I know perfectly well that if all of us are to survive, I have to leave. I can't bear it anymore. Your suffocating presence, your feelings. I've had enough. I know I have to leave Shane. That's the only way to escape the fate of that story repeating itself again. Even if that means hurting Shane. Looking at him, Adeline said, Let me go. Are you done? Shane let out a low laugh. Adeline, do you think a few words like that are enough to hurt me? Shane bent down and kissed Adeline. I've already given up on making you love me. What an unexpected turn. Adeline cried out. Wait a second. Shane suddenly leaned over her and pinned her beneath him. Adeline stared at Shane so close above her. Why all of a sudden? Is he about to skip straight to the wedding night? Shane lifted himself up. That's all, Shane? Were you expecting more? Adeline immediately denied it. And no, that's not it. Shane laid down beside Adeline and said, You looked so disgusted. Don't worry. I don't plan to do anything more either. Adeline replied, Is that so? What a shameless gentleman. In a low voice, Adeline asked, Are you not angry anymore? She had deliberately said cruel things to hurt him, yet seeing the gentle expression on his face now, she felt reassured. That made her feel as if she had been expecting something. Lying on the bed, Shane asked in return, And if I were still angry? Could you handle it? Avoiding his gaze, Adeline said, I'll sleep somewhere else. Shane replied, Sleep here. No matter where you go, I'll follow you. So it makes no difference. Adeline stood up and refused. No, let's take a blanket and sleep in the corridor. Shane reached out and grabbed her wrist. Don't go, Adeline. With a sharp tug, he pulled her back into his arms and held her tightly. If you're not beside me, I won't be able to sleep from anxiety. Resting against his chest, Adeline thought, Come to think of it, ever since we were children, Shane has always been like this to me. In one corner of the garden, the gardener set down his shovel and said, Miss, it's time for you to say goodbye to Daisy. Young Adeline hid in the maid's arms and cried. I can't. The little dog I had raised myself, Daisy, had left my side forever in a single night. Through tears, Adeline said, Daisy was healthy just yesterday. She was so warm, so soft. How can I believe she just died like that? Thinking of sending away that tiny life, I couldn't control my emotions. The maid comforted her. Sometimes lovely little dogs go to heaven for reasons no one knows. I'll plant beautiful flowers where Daisy is buried. And when you see the flowers, you'll be able to remember Daisy, all right? For several days in a row, I was immersed in grief. Standing before the blooming daisies, Adeline whispered, Daisy. Shane walked over to Adeline and asked, Did you like that dog that much? Adeline answered softly, Yes. I really loved her. She always liked me so much. She was really cute. Looking at the flowers, Adeline murmured to herself, Why does every living thing have to die? Can't we stay together forever? Shane took Adeline's hand and said, Don't cry. It hurt me to see you cry. Shane looked at Adeline and continued, If you want, from now on you can think of me as that little puppy. Adeline replied in surprise, Shane, you have a strange side to you too. Shane answered, I'll take that as a compliment. Lowering her head, Adeline said, Shane, just like you said, I miss Daisy very much right now, so I'm sad. But I'm not looking for a replacement for Daisy. Adeline looked at Shane and said, I'm just, whether it's a person or an animal, I'm very afraid of someone dying. Shane took Adeline's hand and said, I'll stay by your side for the rest of my life. I'll never die. I'll always stay with you and never let you be alone. Adeline felt the sweat and warmth in Shane's palm. It was a child's clumsy attempt at comfort. Shane continued, if that's the case, then you won't be afraid anymore, right? Adeline looked at their clasped hands. Stay by her side forever. She knew very well what an absurd promise that was for a child to make. Even now, Shane followed her because he had grown used to being with her. But as time passed, when he met more people, perhaps he would come to like someone else. Still, the way you're trying so hard to comfort me is truly adorable, Shane. So no matter what happens, I'll make you happy. I'll make lonely you become happy, so that even if one day I'm no longer by your side, you can still have happiness. Shane answered, all right, Adeline. Perhaps it was from that moment on. When I truly looked at him for the first time, what I saw was no longer a child who needed my protection, but Shane. From then on, I never once doubted his sincerity, but I always believed it was only the pure feeling of childhood, an emotion that would one day fade and disappear. Yet even after I treated you so coldly, you still didn't give up on me. Faced with someone like you, how could I refuse? I completely lost. Adeline lay in Shane's arms, letting him hold her tightly. There was a knock at the door. Adeline, aren't you ready yet? Adeline sat before the mirror while a maid arranged her elaborate dress. Lady Bertrand pushed the door open and urged her sternly. Her Majesty the Queen has summoned you personally. You absolutely cannot be late. I'm almost done, Mother. Lady Bertrand looked at her daughter, and her expression softened. It really feels like a dream. I never thought there would come a day when I could ride in a carriage with you. To the Imperial Palace. Lady Bertrand turned and walked toward the door. I'll have them prepare the carriage. Come along slowly, Adeline. Watching her mother's departing figure, Adeline thought, Mother. To me, guilt is like an endless set of shackles. Because I'm a sinner who committed a cruel crime. Toward Shane, toward Genevieve, and toward my family. I did something so terrible that I cannot shamelessly ask for forgiveness. The carriage sped down the street, the sound of wheels echoing through the air. I want to explain my circumstances too, but if, just like in a dream, anyone who knows the secret dies, then I truly cannot bear it anymore. Only by leaving that place could I finally escape that nightmare. I can't believe it. It's already been more than a month since I returned. Wait, Adeline's eyes widened. Come to think of it, since I returned to the capital, I haven't had a single nightmare. Could it be that the story in which Adeline had to die has actually already ended? Adeline sank into thought. If that's true, then maybe I set the wrong goal. Perhaps the ending of this story wasn't my death after all. Could it be capturing the final villain? Wait, if this isn't a healing romance fantasy story, then where did all the original healing plot lines go? Adeline pressed a hand to her forehead. No, don't jump to conclusions yet. Even if that really is the truth, the current situation won't change at all. No matter what, for Genevieve's sake, and to keep this world safe, I have to catch that sorcerer. The carriage slowly entered the Imperial Palace. After that, perhaps. Even if this isn't a story where the male and female leads must end up together, as long as this world can continue to exist, maybe staying by Shane's side will be all right too. Like the one who has always confessed to me and spoken of his love, I could tell him everything. On that day, I could show him my weakness as much as I wanted. If such a day really came, if I could sincerely say to him, I'll make you happy, what a beautiful thing that would be. But to make that future come true, she closed her eyes and let out a long breath. Then Adeline opened them again, her gaze turning resolute. All right, Adeline. First, let's start by catching that sorcerer. Inside the Imperial Palace of the Green Windsor Empire, Queen Viola lifted her teacup and said, So you really are still alive, Adeline. I never knew you had such a talent for shocking people. Holding her own teacup, Adeline replied, Yes. I'm very sorry for startling your majesty. Why does this feel so familiar? She's only just returned, and now she's startling me again. I heard that just a few days ago, she even charged at an assassin to protect Genevieve. Sitting opposite her, Adeline sighed inwardly. I know they're old friends, but I never expected your majesty to personally celebrate my return. Gatherings like this always feel suffocating. From now on, if things turn dangerous, don't rush forward. Just hide. Hide behind anyone nearby. Adeline asked hesitantly, Are you telling me to use other people as human shields? To say something so frightening with such a gentle expression. Queen Viola nodded. That's right, Adeline. You must cherish yourself. After all, to me, you're like a daughter of my own. Sitting nearby, Lady Bertrand urged her, Take Her Majesty's words to heart. Adeline replied, Yes. I've always been grateful for your affection. Queen Viola sighed. Honestly, the more time passes, the more regretful I feel. If only Adeline had married my son back then. Hearing those words, Adeline suddenly began coughing. Lady Bertrand said hurriedly, Your Majesty, you promised not to bring that up. Adeline smiled awkwardly and replied, You flatter me, haha. Inwardly, Adeline grumbled, Absolutely not. Marrying a man who's both a flirt and impossible to read? Never. Besides, isn't His Highness discussing marriage with a foreign princess? Queen Viola sighed. That was the plan, until that princess fell in love with a rebel leader and even handed her kingdom over to him. Queen Viola continued, "Forget it. I won't mention that off-key daughter-in-law anymore. Just thinking about it makes my heart ache." Adeline dabbed the corner of her mouth with a handkerchief. "I didn't expect there to be someone even worse than me. Compared to her, I'm nothing." Queen Viola looked at Adeline and said, "Adeline, actually, I asked you here today because I have a favor to ask." Adeline asked in surprise, "A favor? From me?" Queen Viola took Adeline's hand and said, "Would you be willing, during the upcoming period, to help the crown prince find a wife? Since you're a woman capable of deceiving the entire world, I trust your eye for people. Stay by Edwin's side and help him choose someone so that he can finally make up his mind. You can do that, can't you?" Adeline replied, Of course. It would be my honor. Please leave it to me. Even though it would be best not to get involved in royal affairs right now, I can't afford the consequences of angering her." Queen Viola smiled. "Oh, thank you. What a pity." Adeline walked alone down the corridor and slumped against the wall. "I'm completely exhausted. No one believes in the Saintess's miracle at all." Shane stepped up and asked, "Adeline, did the audience go well?" Adeline lowered her head and replied, "No. I feel like I've aged 10 years. Shane supported Adeline and asked, "If you're tired, should we go back?" Adeline straightened up and said, "No. Since we're already here, before we leave, I want to see Genevieve." A voice came from the end of the corridor. "You can't see her." Adeline looked toward the approaching figure and called out, "Your Highness." The crown prince approached them and said, "Other than her husband, she isn't seeing anyone right now." Adeline asked in surprise, "Genevieve?" Edwin replied with a smile, "Yes." She specifically said she absolutely does not want to see you. Adeline froze. "What? Genevieve doesn't want to see me? Wait, what?" Edwin looked at the bewildered Adeline and sighed softly. "She's broken." Adeline looked at Edwin and asked, was she badly frightened? After all, seeing someone's hand cut off right in front of her would naturally make her react like this. Edwin replied, "As the Saintess, she's seen far worse than that. Do you really think something like this would frighten her?" Adeline fell into thought. If that's the case, could it be that Genevieve, like Shane, is angry because I recklessly rushed over to save her? Adeline quickly regained her spirit and said, "It's fine. I'm just as stubborn as she is. I'll keep waiting until she's willing to see me." Looking at Adeline, Edwin muttered helplessly, "A stubborn woman isn't very lovable, Adeline." Adeline confidently walked toward the door. "This door will open sooner or later because Genevieve loves me the most." 30 minutes later, Adeline was pounding hard on the tightly shut door and shouting, "Genevieve, please open the door. Can we talk face to face?" Standing to the side, Shane said, "Adeline, we're going home in 10 minutes. Edwin gave a cold snort. "I told you, she's not seeing anyone. She won't even see me, the crown prince. What makes you think you'd be any different?" Adeline kept knocking as she said, "It seems your Highness and Genevieve have grown quite close." Edwin replied with a smile, "We do see each other often." Adeline sighed and thought to herself, "I did hear that the moment she learned about the attack, she rushed over immediately. It seems they really are close. Is that true? I'll say this one last time." Adeline raised her voice toward the closed door. "Genevieve, are you really planning never to see me again? If you won't open the door, I'll come again tomorrow. If you don't open the door, I won't eat. I'll starve myself to death." Standing to the side with his arms folded, Edwin laughed. A childish little tantrum like that won't work." Before he even finished speaking, the sound of the door unlocking came from inside. Genevieve pushed the door open. "How can you say something like that? That's too underhanded, Adeline." Adeline cried out in delight. "Genevieve." Then she asked carefully, "May I come in?" Genevieve was silent for a moment before replying softly, "Yes." The door closed behind them. With her back to Adeline, Genevieve said, I just wasn't feeling very well and wanted to be alone. I'm sorry for making you wait so long. I think all the exhaustion I've built up over time finally caught up with me. I wasn't avoiding you because I was angry." Adeline looked at her and asked, "So you weren't hurt because of me? So you were hurt because of me? Because that man grabbed me by the neck when I tried to protect you?" Genevieve lowered her head and said nothing. Adeline continued to explain, "Genevieve, I really wasn't trying to die this time. It was just that the situation was urgent. My body moved on its own. I told you." Genevieve's eyes filled with tears. Adeline froze. Genevieve asked through tears, "Have you already forgotten? I told you that whenever you don't take proper care of yourself, my heart feels like it's breaking, Adeline. If the Duke hadn't been there at the time, or if he had arrived 1 second later, if that man still hadn't stopped even after his hand was cut off, if he had accomplices, you really could have died this time. I noticed the attack first, and Shane was beside me then, but even so, my body truly did move on its own." Genevieve turned around and shouted, "I'm fine. I've dealt with attacks on this level many times before. Do you even know how strong the protection of the goddess is?" Crying, Genevieve shouted, "Even if I were grabbed by the throat, beaten, or left without food or water for days, I would recover very quickly." Adeline flinched hard and protested, "How can you say something like that? By that logic, if you healed me, I'd recover immediately too." Genevieve shouted back, "How can you compare yourself to me, Adeline?" Adeline asked, "What difference does it make?" Clutching her chest, Genevieve cried out, "I should have been the first to notice. To notice that someone nearby was under the influence of dark magic. No matter how half-baked a saintess I may be, I should at least have sensed something that obvious. Adeline cut her off. Don't call yourself half-baked. Adeline looked at Genevieve, and her tone softened. Understand. You must have been very anxious then. If you want to cry, I'll stay by your side the whole time. But you absolutely cannot belittle yourself. Genevieve lowered her head, tears sliding down her cheeks. Adeline, to tell the truth, I'm angry with you too. But more than that, I can't forgive myself. That man really was being controlled by dark magic. It was dark magic that I should have been able to dispel. The former saintess didn't even need physical contact to break curses and heal people. But I can't do that. Genevieve lowered her head and said, because I'm only a half-baked saintess. Because I'm too weak. No matter how hard I try, I can't do anything. Adeline interrupted firmly. You can. Genevieve raised her head, tears in her eyes, and asked, how can you be so sure? As if you know everything. Adeline replied in some confusion, teach that's. Adeline wrestled inwardly. Because in the original story, you were capable of anything. But I can't just say that outright. It's just my intuition. My intuition has never been wrong, has it? Adeline smiled and continued. Even so, if you still can't believe in yourself, if you still feel anxious, then please believe in me. Through tears, Genevieve said, Adeline, why are you able to believe in me like that, when no one else believes in me, when even I can't believe in myself? Adeline replied, of course I believe in you. Adeline hugged Genevieve and continued, because I know how amazing our Genevieve is. Leaning in Adeline's arms, Genevieve thought, why can this person be so unwavering? Why is she so strong? From the first time we met until now, she has never changed. A wooden bucket was kicked over across the wooden floor, spilling water everywhere. A man roared angrily, you idiot, is chopping wood and starting a fire really that hard? Are you trying to make me freeze to death in this cold? Genevieve sat collapsed on the icy floor and looked up at the man before her. But you just told me to fetch water. The man yanked Genevieve by the hair. You dare talk back to me? Her head jerked upward from the force. Looking toward the woman sitting on a chair not far away, Genevieve cried out in despair. Please don't hit me. Save me, mother. This world had never once been kind to me. My stepfather was always drunk and violent, and my mother, afraid of him, turned a blind eye to my desperate pleas. From inside the cabin came my stepfather's furious roar. You dared bite me. Waving a wooden stick, he chased after me and shouted, stand still. If I catch you, I swear I won't let you off. Genevieve fled from the cabin and, in snow deeper than her ankles, ran as fast as she could. Stumbling across the snow, Genevieve thought, my childhood was a living hell. Her strength finally gave out, and she fell into the thick snowdrift. Her stepfather approached with the stick raised. At that moment, a dark blue cloak billowed in the wind and snow and stopped in front of Genevieve. Genevieve Clement. Even at the moment I met Shane, I did not feel as if I had been saved. Reining in his horse, Shane looked down at Genevieve and said, come with me. In those cold eyes, I could not find a trace of emotion. Toward him, I felt only pure fear. Even so, when he told me to come with him, that alone was enough for me, as long as I would no longer be beaten by my stepfather. I never asked for a reason. I simply followed Shane. After coming to the Imperial Palace with Shane, I became the Saintess. A voice rang in Genevieve's mind. What are you doing, Genevieve? More than anyone, you know perfectly well that you are not the real Saintess. Even now, I know I must tell the truth. I am nothing more than an insignificant girl. But in the end, I could not say those truths aloud because I did not want to return to that hell. That hell where I lived every day in fear, never knowing what might be thrown at me next. There, every day was filled with shouting and violence. Maybe someone would condemn me and ask if I really deceived the entire world for that reason alone. Yes, I did betray my conscience for that reason, only because I wanted to live like a human being. In the splendid palace garden, nobles gathered together and whispered among themselves. A woman murmured, that girl is the Saintess? She doesn't look special at all. Could she be a fraud? Pretending to be the Saintess just to deceive the young Duke Blancard, Shane? Sitting alone under the pavilion with her head lowered, Genevieve listened as those doubtful whispers kept reaching her ears. The reason I could not refute any of the suspicions aimed at me was because the crushing weight of guilt pressed down on my heart. In this world, without the Saintess, the land would continue to be corrupted and eventually be destroyed. The Saintess is indispensable to this world. Only the Saintess can save us. Someone like me could never become such a great person. What if the real Saintess can't be found because of me? What if, for my own selfish desire alone, I put the entire world in danger? Should I tell the truth now? Genevieve clutched the hem of her dress tightly. No, if I say it, I'll have to go back there. But what if the real Saintess can't save the world because I stand in her way? Taking a deep breath, Genevieve began to speak with trembling lips. I'm not the Saintess. Just then, a clear voice interrupted her. It's a pleasure to meet you. You must be Genevieve. I'm Adeline, daughter of Marquis Bertrand. Adeline gave a slight curtsy in greeting to the noble Saintess. Genevieve looked up at the lively girl standing before her. From that day on, everything changed. Adeline invited me to the Bertrand estate almost every day. We shared warm and comforting meals together. There, I no longer had to live in fear. Adeline showed me a new world I had never even dreamed of. After arriving in this unfamiliar city, it was the first peace I had ever felt. No, it was probably the first peace I had felt in my entire life. Genevieve closed her eyes, a genuine smile appearing on her face. Lady Adeline was the one who taught me what real warmth is. And because of that, every time I thought about how I was deceiving her, my heart grew unbearably heavy. Genevieve looked at Adeline and asked, "Lady Adeline, why are you so kind to me?" Adeline replied with a radiant smile, "Is it because you're too adorable, perhaps?" Genevieve lowered her head. I didn't know how to repay such kindness. I really can't keep deceiving someone who is this gentle with me, even someone like me. Hurry and tell her that you're not the saintess, Genevieve. Adeline looked at Genevieve and said, "You've never owed me anything. As long as you live happily, that's enough for me." Genevieve looked at Adeline, "But I've been shamelessly accepting all of this." Adeline smiled at her and said, "You can pursue whatever happiness you want to your heart's content, Genevieve, because only when you're happy." Well, I feel happy too. Looking at the Adeline before her, Genevieve thought, Lady Adeline. Genevieve's hand clenched tightly around her skirt. What should I do? I don't want to disappoint her. I wrap my vile selfishness in these petty excuses. Yes, I should stay silent. I don't want to lose Lady Adeline. As long as I'm careful, as long as I keep quiet and no one finds out, everything will be fine. And yet, considering the public's opinion, I never should have done that. Because of my existence, Lady Adeline became entangled in a vicious scandal. In a magnificent banquet hall, nobles gathered together and whispered, "It's that girl, isn't it? The woman who bewitched the young Duke Blancard. I heard she's not the saintess at all, just the Duke's mistress. Lady Bertrand cared for her so much, and yet she stole Lady Bertrand's fiancé. Poor Lady Bertrand." Genevieve's hand trembled around her wineglass. "I really made someone who treated me with such warmth bear this kind of ugly rumor. But if I leave like this, if I leave here, I'll have to go back to that house. I would rather die than go back. So what should I do? I'm truly this selfish. How filthy. Yes, I really am a selfish, filthy person. Just when I had come to despise myself completely, the one who saved me appeared." Adeline strode forward and asked the gossiping nobles, "What did you just say?" Startled, they cried out, "A Lady Bertrand." At that moment, the one who stepped forward to protect me was Lady Adeline. She stood among the crowd, her face cold as ice. Good heavens, Lady Adeline heard everything. Looking at Adeline's back, Genevieve said in a trembling voice, Lady Adeline, that's not how it is." Adeline looked straight at those gossiping nobles and said firmly, "There is no problem at all between Shane and me. And a relationship between him and Genevieve is absolutely not the filthy sort you imagine." A noblewoman protested unwillingly, "But Lady Bertrand, you may have been deceived by a fake saintess." Adeline spread her arms to shield Genevieve. "Genevieve is not a fraud. I guarantee it in the name of Bertrand. She is the true saintess." Those resolute words seemed to cast a shadow of some kind of contract. A noblewoman pointed ahead in shock. "Oh, there's a strange energy." Another cried, "Look over there." In a dark corner, a brilliant light suddenly burst forth, enveloping Genevieve and Adeline alike. The surrounding nobles all stopped talking and stared at the scene in disbelief. "My goodness, this light," someone asked in a trembling voice. "Could it be divine power?" At that moment, my power awakened, even if only in part. Adeline held Genevieve tightly. "She is the one who always gives me a reason. She is my eternal savior. Both in the past and now, whenever Lady Adeline says I can do it, I feel as though I can become strong enough." A few days later, in the palace banquet hall, Edwin and Genevieve stood side by side on the terrace, overlooking the splendid scene below. "What do you think, Your Highness?" Edwin replied softly, "You mean Adeline?" After the wedding, she refused all social engagements, but recently, the number of times she goes out has suddenly increased. Edwin continued, "She must be planning something." Genevieve nodded. "Yes, she must be making some sort of plan we know nothing about again." Spreading his hands, Edwin said, "I hope whatever she's planning doesn't go well. I don't want to see Shane lose his mind a second time." Just then, a strange sound suddenly came from the sky. Countless black feathers drifted down, swirling as they fell to the ground. Genevieve abruptly looked up at those ominous black feathers and let out a cry. Lady Adeline, along with that frightened scream, the massive glass window shattered with a deafening crash. The banquet hall instantly descended into chaos, with screams breaking out everywhere. What happened? A huge black wing just swept through the air. The window suddenly shattered. Amid the confusion, Adeline was knocked down onto the red carpet. Genevieve immediately rushed over and shielded her. "Are you all right?" Adeline was still shaken. "Gee, Genevieve, what on earth is happening?" In a dark corner, several crows with red eyes perched silently on dead branches, coldly watching it all. Is that a monster summoning circle? This is dark magic, someone shouted. Someone cried Adeline's name. The sound of shattering glass exploded in the air. Startled by the sudden upheaval, Adeline recoiled as countless fragments flew in every direction. Genevieve rushed forward and held Adeline tightly. A giant black bird dove through the broken window, and with a piercing shriek, the monster opened its huge beak and slashed one claw violently at the floor. The people around them cried out in terror. "It's a monster! Run!" A flash of cold steel cut through the air. Shane drew his sword and charged at the monster. He slashed at its wing, and the creature let out a shrill wail before crashing heavily to the floor. Sheathing his sword at once, Shane hurried to Adeline's side. "Adeline!" Steadying her, Shane asked, "Are you hurt?" Leaning in his arms, Adeline replied, "No, I'm Fina." Standing nearby, Genevieve said, "I already protected her with divine power, so don't worry." Shane looked at Genevieve and said, "Good. Now take Adeline and evacuate." Looking at the chaos around them, Genevieve said, "But I have to stay behind and deal with these monsters." Shane, cut her off. Adeline's safety comes first. Take her somewhere safe first, then come back. "No, I can avoid them myself, so..." Genevieve shook her head and replied, "No. Lady Adeline, Lord Shane is right. I'll protect you. Please come with me." A huge red demonic bird circled in the air, letting out a piercing cry. Shane swung his sword at the monster, diving down at him, shouting without looking back, "Go!" Genevieve pulled Adeline along and replied, "All right." The two of them ran through the chaos. Adeline looked back at the figure fighting behind them. "Shane, you absolutely must not get hurt." From the second-floor terrace of the banquet hall, Edwin shouted his orders. "Imperial guards, protect the distinguished guests. Do not let a single monster enter the palace again." To think dark magic could invade the Imperial Palace so easily. A guard hurried over to him and said, "Your Highness, you must evacuate as well." Fortunately, Genevieve and Adeline looked safe for the moment. Genevieve ran through the corridor while pulling Adeline along. A huge ostrich-like monster swooped down from above, its shrill cry tearing through the air. Adeline stared in horror at the sharp talons descending toward them. Genevieve shouted, "Lady Adeline, wait." In an instant, a golden divine magic circle spread beneath Genevieve's feet. An intense holy light surged toward the sky. The bird-like monster let out a terrible scream in the light and was purified out of existence at once, its black feathers drifting slowly through the air. Looking at the scene before her, Adeline exclaimed, "Amazing, Genevieve. You destroyed the monster in a single strike." Genevieve looked at her own palm and replied, "No, my power is still far from enough. If this were the former Sainess's power, she should be able to destroy the magic circle directly and protect this whole place, not merely protect one person like this." A shrill scream came from farther away. Adeline and Genevieve both turned at the same time to look deeper into the corridor, where mist was pouring out without end. A huge red summoning circle flashed in the darkness, and countless black shadows tore their way out of it. At this rate, the entire palace will be in danger. Lady Adeline, hurry and hide in the inner chambers. Standing in front of Adeline, Genevieve said, "At the very least, I'll protect you." Adeline's expression grew grave. The situation now was extremely bad. Screams rose one after another as demonic birds rampaged wildly through the banquet hall, and the guests fled in terror in every direction. No matter how strong the Imperial Guards and Shane were, there were simply too many monsters. They would collapse from exhaustion. In this situation, I can't let Genevieve remain trapped here because of me. This is absurd. Looking at the monsters continuing to pour out, Genevieve said, "There's actually a sorcerer capable of using dark magic on this scale." Adeline took Genevieve by the shoulders and said, "Genevieve, I'm fine. So hurry and go help Shane. If this keeps up, he'll be in danger." Genevieve replied hesitantly, "Lady Adeline, but no." "Genevieve, how long are you going to stay weak? If we keep going like this, everyone really will be in danger." Genevieve replied, "Yes." Genevieve rose to her feet, golden divine power erupting around her. A massive magic circle unfolded in midair, an intense holy light instantly swept through the entire corridor. The charging bird-like monster was reduced to ashes in the radiance, feathers scattering as they fell. Genevieve gasped heavily, her body seeming somewhat weak. Adeline stepped forward to support her. "Genevieve, you're breathing. Are you all right?" Protecting Lady Adeline is already the limit of my ability. I can't fulfill Lady Adeline's wish. Adeline said softly, "Thank you for helping me, Genevieve. You've already done your best. I am sorry." "Lady Adeline, you trusted someone as useless as me, and yet I disappointed you again. I always put Adeline in danger, and when it matters most, I'm this powerless." A sharp cry rang out again. Adeline was startled and looked up. A huge bird-like monster swept past the terrace. Adeline looked toward the distant battlefield and shouted, "Shane." Hearing her cry, Shane turned his head. His expression changed instantly. "Watch out." Behind Shane, a huge red magic circle suddenly appeared in midair. It spread vast wings that blotted out the sky and dove straight toward the defenseless Shane. Seeing this, Adeline cried out, "No," and rushed forward without a second thought. Genevieve shouted in terror, "Lady Adeline, don't." The huge red demonic bird spread its wings, and its shadow instantly covered the two below. "Adeline!" shouted Shane. Shane turned sharply and saw Adeline running toward him. His face changed drastically as he roared, "Adeline, what are you doing? Get out of the way." Adeline stretched out her hand desperately, trying to reach him. "Come here, Shane." Watching this, Genevieve screamed in despair, "Lady Adeline, to me, this world was never beautiful. Even the gods abandoned me, filling my life with hardship and pain. Even so, the reason I protect this world as the Saintess is only because of you, Lady Adeline. I only want you to live in a safer world. That is the reason I protect this world that is not beautiful at all." Adeline's gentle voice echoed in her memory. "If you find it hard to believe in yourself and you still feel uneasy, then please believe in me, because I will always stand on your side, Genevieve. So please, at least once, let me repay that trust." Genevieve closed her eyes. In the next instant, dazzling golden light burst forth from Adeline's side. Divine power bloomed like a blazing sun, illuminating the pitch-black night. The giant demonic bird let out a horrible scream in the holy light, and its body shattered and broke apart instantly. One guest looked around and said, "Are the monsters all disappearing?" A guard looked at his wounded arm. "Huh, the wound closed up. I can't feel any pain at all." No way. Could all of this really be the Saintess's power? Sitting behind his desk, Edwin looked at the situation before him and said, "This is truly troublesome." He looked at Genevieve, who was seated on the sofa, and, of all places, you had to awaken in such a crowded, public setting. Of course, those people don't know it was a true awakening. From now on, people everywhere will be talking about your achievements, and the assassins will be even more determined to take your life. That means the attacks against you will become more direct and more persistent. If that really happens, I'd be grateful. Next time, I'll definitely catch that bastard. I'll make them pay for daring to put Lady Adeline in danger. Edwin rose to his feet. "That's an excellent attitude. Shane, I'm putting you in charge of the investigation team." Shane looked at Edwin and asked, "Does it have to be me?" Edwin spread his hands. "Have you forgotten? You are the Saintess's guardian. How long do you plan to stand by your wife's side like a newlywed couple?" Shane replied calmly, "If Adeline allows it, I'd like to stand by her side forever." Edwin fell silent. "I really want to punch him." Turning away, Edwin said, "Once the investigation begins, you'll have to stay in the palace. So why not bring Adeline as well and have everyone live together? I'll even prepare a bedroom for you." Genevieve looked at Edwin and said, "I oppose that, Your Highness. If, as you say, we cannot predict when the enemy may attack again, then staying near me will only become more dangerous. I cannot let Lady Adeline fall into such danger again." Shane nodded in agreement. Rather than keeping Adeline by Genevieve's side, locking her in a bunker might actually be safer. The more you try to protect her like that, the more she'll want to come out. So it would be best to keep her shut up in the Bertrand residence for a while. Hearing this, Harrison was shocked. What? A bunker? Lock her up? Edwin looked at the two of them helplessly. "What exactly do you people take Adeline for?" Pressing a hand to his forehead, he sighed. "What a perfect Saintess and Guardian pair. Harrison, go assist Duke Blancard as well. Since the palace was attacked, it would be best to send one of my guard knights too." Harrison lowered his head and replied, "As you command, Your Highness, Edwin." Edwin fell into thought. In the past 5 years, Genevieve's abilities had not grown much. But after Adeline returned, one incident after another began to occur, and the Saintess's power awakened accordingly, bursting forth as if it had exploded. Could all of this really just be coincidence? He said thoughtfully, "This is very interesting." That night, at the Bertrand estate, monsters were actually summoned into the imperial palace, although the royal family issued an order to keep the matter quiet. News of something this large was bound to leak out. Quite a few prominent guests were injured in the incident, but I heard the Saintess's power healed everyone. Most importantly, Adeline, I'm glad you weren't hurt. Adeline smiled awkwardly and replied, "Yes, that's right. So that's why they suddenly made me return to the Bertrand residence. They brought me back so my family could keep watch over me." Adeline felt a chill. This is basically a prison, but there was one good thing. Lowering her gaze, Adeline thought silently. Back at the Blancard Duchy, I didn't even dare try it. But here, I can summon that person. Lucian pushed open the door and entered the room. "So you finally remember to look for me. The young lady of the Bertrand family. Or no, I suppose now you should be called the Duchess of Blancard, right?" Standing by the window, Adeline looked at the appearing Lucian and said, "I didn't expect that when I called for you, you'd really show up." Lucian, with both hands in his pockets, Lucian replied somewhat helplessly, "I went through so much trouble to help you escape, and yet you walked right into a trap like an idiot and got dragged back. I only came to see the face of that idiot. Looking at him, Adeline sighed inwardly. He's still as capricious as ever. That's exactly why I hadn't intended to see him again. In these shadowy back alleys, there's actually something that drives power more than money. Contrary to the rumors that he'd do anything for cash, what truly drives Lucian is amusement, interest, curiosity, and debt. The reason I was able to get him to help me escape 5 years ago was because, as someone who knew the supporting plot, I saved his life and made him owe me a life debt. The healer who appeared at the perfect moment, the corpse that looked strikingly like me, even the escape route and the place to hide, every bit of it was arranged with his help. All those arrangements back then were made by this man. Lucian lounged carelessly onto the sofa. Do you know what your husband did last time? Adeline looked at that scar. Even after taking numbing drugs and undergoing surgery, that pain still made me think I was going to die. The moment I see your face, I remember all of it. Touching the scar on his cheek, his expression turned somewhat playful. I don't know how he tracked down my whereabouts, but when he came to find me, he claimed he already knew the whole truth and demanded that I hand you over. And the worst part was that he even left a bloody mark on my face. With a dark expression, Shane had demanded, "Where is Adeline?" Lucian described the scene to Adeline. You really should have seen what he looked like then. He was like a demon. Adeline replied awkwardly, "A demon? That's a bit exaggerated." So, in the end, he did force a confession out of you? I guess that must be it. Adeline took out a note, her expression turning serious. Anyway, I want you to help me find someone. Taking the note, Lucian asked, "Who?" Adeline said thoughtfully, "I believe that up to now, all the assassination attempts have been planned by the same mastermind behind the scenes. That's why I went from one social gathering to another, meeting every single person who had been in the church that day, but I still haven't found anyone I could definitively identify as a suspect." Looking at the information in his hand, Lucian said quietly, "And then the incident with the monsters invading the palace happened." Adeline nodded. "So among the people who appeared in the church that day, I want you to investigate who also attended this royal banquet. In particular, I need information regarding dark magic and sorcerers." After hearing that, Lucian replied, "The palace should already be investigating that kind of thing, shouldn't they? Looks like you're plotting something again." Adeline sighed and said, "There's no way they'd hand over that kind of information to someone like me. I can't explain in detail, but I have a reason I absolutely need to know. You'll help me, right?" Lucian Cole looked at the note in his hand and answered with a smile. "No." Adeline Bertrand froze, then asked loudly, "Why not? If you really don't intend to help, then why did you come here?" Lucian replied matter-of-factly, "Didn't I tell you? I just came to take a look. That idiot face of yours. I've already repaid the debt I owed you, so I have no reason to help anymore." Adeline stared at him irritably and asked, "So you really aren't going to help?" Lucian shifted into a more comfortable position and said to him, "I don't want to help for free, but I can play along with you for a while, as long as you pay a very small fee. You know, letting me leave would cost you much more." Adeline fell silent. After a moment, she finally asked, "How much do you want before you'll help?" Lucian burst out laughing. The great Duchess Blancard is haggling over the price. Smiling, Lucian said, "Fine. Once I've checked the books carefully, I'll settle up with you later. For now, I'll put it on your tab. If you're planning to provoke that man again, then at the very least you'll have to pay compensation for the scars on my face." Adeline replied helplessly, "No, I told you, I'm not planning to provoke him. Anyway, if you hear anything, pass it on to me through Lloyd." Lucian stood up and said, "Understood, Duchess. Now that you've finished telling me what you needed, I'll be going. I'm a very busy man." Adeline looked at him and asked, "You're leaving already?" Without turning around, Lucian waved a hand. "If you want the household to know that you called me here, then by all means, see me out." Adeline stopped in her tracks and said, "All right, goodbye. Lloyd, please escort him out." Lloyd gave a slight bow and replied, "Yes, my lady." As Lucian walked along the forest path outside the Bertrand estate, he muttered softly, "What a troublesome young lady. After everything that's happened, what is she scheming now?" Lloyd, following behind him, replied calmly, "Indeed. But compared to you, Lord Lucian, what my lady has done is only a drop in the ocean." Lucian stopped walking. "You've become quite an excellent loyal dog, Lloyd. Back then, I really should have trained you myself to the very end." Lloyd lowered his head, his voice carrying a trace of coldness. "Lord Lucian, you were the one who abandoned me first." Lucian turned around and spread his hands. "What a hurtful thing to say. I'm the one who was wronged. I was only testing you, seeing how far I could make use of you. Then Adeline took you away completely. Don't worry, Lloyd. I won't tell her the truth. I won't tell her that it was I who trained you in the beginning. You just don't want your beloved master to find out that you were once a little dog who fell into darkness and learned how to kill, right?" Lloyd replied coldly, "My lady's business is finished. Stop talking nonsense and leave." Lucian stretched lazily and said, "What a frightening villain. I'll be off now. Woof woof." As Lucian walked into the night, the corners of his lips curved faintly. This was truly interesting. How had a girl raised like a flower in a greenhouse managed to do it? How had she known I was collapsed in that back alley? Then, right afterward, she appeared at precisely the right moment and took Lloyd away. Was all of that really just coincidence? In any case, the things she does always make me crazily curious. For something interesting and captivating, I'd even wager my life. Several days had already passed since the monster summoning incident. As Adeline walked down the street, she had assumed she would be shut up in the mansion, but Shane Blancard had unexpectedly let her out so easily and even allowed her to go out alone. Was it because everyone's attention was focused on Genevieve's convalescence? Shane was currently leading the Imperial Investigation Unit in pursuit of the mastermind behind the incident. Since Lucian had joined the investigation as well, they would probably find a lead soon. Of course, that didn't mean she could just sit still and wait. There was something only she could do. That was to retrace the storyline of the original novel. Adeline thought back over the plot. The attack on Genevieve at the church should never have happened, but the monster summoning incident from a few days ago was different. That was part of the story from the beginning of the novel. In the original story, Genevieve defeated the monster that appeared in the Imperial Palace by herself, and through that, she cleared herself of all suspicion. It should have happened 5 years earlier. Adeline had no idea why it had only appeared now. In the original, after that incident, people changed their attitudes and began treating Genevieve kindly. But disgusted by such hypocritical human nature, Genevieve abandoned them all and ran to the square. From that moment on, the novel's plot changed drastically, because in that square, Genevieve met the sorcerer who had been watching her for the first time. Taking that as a turning point, the sorcerer developed an obsession with Genevieve that bordered on madness. As Adeline walked down the street, she couldn't help thinking how strange life was. She had once tried so desperately to avoid the original plot, and now she had no choice but to retrace its course. Lloyd had said he would bring Lucian's investigation report today. There was still some time left before they were supposed to meet. Adeline thought, since that's the case before then, a server set down dessert and said, "Here is your order." Looking at the black tea and cake in front of her, Adeline said, "Thank you for the meal." Next, she would try following Genevieve's route from the original work. In the original, Genevieve had met that sorcerer on the way out of this very cafe. This was entirely for the investigation. If she followed Genevieve's path from the original story, maybe she really would run into that sorcerer. Bursts of laughter drifted in from outside the cafe. A little girl ran toward her mother, crying "Mom." Another child chased after her, shouting, "Wait for me." Watching the children run, their mother cautioned, "Oh dear, be careful, don't fall." People on the street were chattering among themselves, and one lady sighed, "Goodness, this latest incident really was." Looking out the window at the bustling crowd, Adeline thought how strange it felt that all these people were characters from a novel. What kind of roles did each of them play here? Or rather, did people like these, people never even mentioned in the original, not even have roles of their own? The feeling was truly strange. This was no longer merely the world of a novel. It had become a world that felt utterly real to her. Adeline lowered her eyes. This was the world in which she had to keep living. Lloyd walked in and called out, "My lady." Snapping back to herself, Adeline looked up. "Lloyd." Adeline looked at Lloyd and asked, "Did Lucian find anything?" Standing beside the table, Lloyd replied, "Yes. First, there is news regarding Genevieve." Adeline pressed, "Genevieve?" Lloyd answered, "Yes. I heard she has gone to recuperate with her husband." Adeline lowered her head and thought, that's not exactly special information. She must be exhausted. She certainly ought to get some proper rest." Lloyd continued, "In addition, he also told me another story about the sorcerer." Adeline raised her head and asked, "What is it?" With a serious expression, Lloyd asked, "My lady, have you ever heard of a place called the Kingdom of Brubin?" Adeline shook her head. "Brubin? No, this is my first time hearing of it." Lloyd explained, "It is a small kingdom on the western border of the Green Windsor Empire. Although the Kingdom of Brubin is small and mountainous, thanks to its developed forestry and mining industries, even if it was not especially rich, it was still a place where the people could live in peace. However, 14 years ago, a massive magical explosion occurred within the Kingdom of Brubin. Absorbed in what she was hearing, Adeline couldn't help asking, "Something like that happened? Why do I know nothing about it?" Lloyd looked at her and explained, "You were still young at the time, and the Empire was not affected. The newspapers also do not seem to have covered it extensively then. But the Kingdom of Brubin suffered a devastating blow because of it. The land became barren, countless trees withered, and monsters even began to appear. For that reason, Brubin has now fallen into being the weakest among weak nations." Adeline said thoughtfully, "I see. A magical explosion. Could that have been caused by the sorcerer?" Lloyd answered, "It was almost certainly the work of a sorcerer. However, the rumors coming out of Brubin are somewhat different. After the magical explosion, a sorcerer capable of controlling monsters appeared in the Kingdom of Brubin. According to the rumors, he is saving the ravaged country. Monsters are creatures even great mages cannot control, yet that sorcerer can make them obedient and uses them to protect the people of Brubin. To the locals, he is practically like a god." Lloyd paused, then said, "For now, that is everything I heard from Lord Lucian. He said he would continue investigating." After hearing all this, Adeline looked at Lloyd and said, "Thank you, Lloyd. You've worked hard." None of this information had ever been mentioned in the original story. A hero who had saved a dying nation would not attack the Imperial Palace for no reason. It simply made no sense. But what troubled her most was that the man possessed the ability to control monsters. Adeline clutched her head in confusion. She had no idea what was going on. She had intended to collect information so she could sort things out. So why were the unknown mysteries only increasing? The bell above the cafe door rang. As Lloyd was about to leave, someone pushed the door open. Shane approached Adeline from behind and lifted her chin with his hand. "I missed you." Startled, Adeline exclaimed, "Shane, how did you know I was here?" Looking at her, Shane said, "Clever, yet innocent Adeline. Did you really think I would let you return to the Bertrand estate alone without any safeguards? Especially when I know you could run away at any moment. No wonder he let me out so easily. So they were all in this together." Adeline recalled what had happened before she left. "Brother, I'm going to the square to play." At the time, Jeff had merely sat on the sofa, turning the pages of a book. "All right, have fun." Lloyd had given a slight bow and said, "Then I shall take my leave, my lady." Seeing that, Adeline had hurriedly cried, "No, wait, Lloyd." From behind, Shane pressed a hand to Adeline's shoulder and said, "I thought this would be more comfortable for you as well. I do like how quick you are to understand." Shane looked at her in silence. "Adeline, are you angry? Your brows are all furrowed." Turning her face away, Adeline replied, "No matter where I go, you're watching me. How can I not be angry?" Shane lowered his eyes. "True, that was a meaningless question. Just pretend I never said anything." Shane lowered his head and pressed a kiss to Adeline's cheek. He had said he had already given up on receiving her love. What those words meant was that whether or not she loved him, Shane intended to go on loving her. He had clearly set one premise for himself, that of course she would hate him. She wanted to correct that premise. But now was not the time. She still had not caught the true villain from the original story. If she could survive until the real culprit was captured and the story truly came to an end, then when that time came, she would definitely give him an answer. She would tell Shane that she liked him too, and that she wanted the two of them to find happiness together. So, please wait just a little longer. Adeline looked at Shane and asked, "Shane, how is the Imperial Investigation Unit doing? Is the investigation going smoothly?" Pulling out a chair and sitting down, Shane replied, "I came precisely to tell you that. We finally caught the real culprit." Adeline froze for a moment, repeating his words. "Caught the real culprit?" Then realization hit her, and she cried out, "What? What did you say?" Adeline sprang to her feet. "Who was it? When? How did you catch him?" Sitting calmly at the table, Shane replied, "That bastard crawled out on his own, because he attacked Genevieve again." Adeline stood there, her mind going blank in an instant. Inside the palace, Shane and Adeline walked side by side through the corridor. Shane said, "You don't have to worry. Genevieve was not seriously hurt." Not seriously hurt? What exactly was that supposed to mean? Even if it had been part of a plan to lure out the culprit, Genevieve had still volunteered to act as bait. Why would Genevieve do something like that? Shane asked, "Are you really that worried about her?" Adeline replied, "She threw herself into danger. Of course I'm worried. Genevieve has no idea how important she is." Shane said nothing. Coming from me, those words must sound terribly hypocritical to Shane. Adeline stopped walking and said, "I'm sorry. I shouldn't have taken it out on you." Shane replied, "I understand. I felt the same way you do." Calling Genevieve's name, Adeline hurried toward the room. "Are you really all right?" Genevieve turned toward the door and said, "Ah, Lady Adeline, you're here already." Adeline stopped short. From aside, Shane said, "See, I told you she was fine." Holding a teacup, Genevieve asked, "You're not angry with me again, are you? Your expression says it all." Adeline replied, "I'm not angry." Shane immediately exposed the lie. "That's not true, Adeline. Relax your face first." So when she had said she was going to the countryside with her husband, it had actually been to serve as bait. Time rewound to several hours earlier to a retreat on the outskirts of the capital. On the lake outside the capital, Harrison used a long pole to guide the small boat across the water. "Are you sure this is really all right, Jenny?" "Of course I'll do everything I can to protect you, but I'm still worried." Genevieve replied, "Don't worry, Harrison. Don't forget, it's not just the two of us here." Hidden among the trees on the shore, figures kept watch over the lake. The Royal Guard and Duke Blancard were protecting the area. "We'll be fine. Besides, I'm a saintess who saved the palace from disaster. Have a little more faith in your wife." Jenny, suddenly bright red drops of blood fell from the air and splashed into the lake. Genevieve shuddered. In an instant, a massive red magic circle spread over the water, enveloping the entire boat. He took the bait. Sensing the disturbance, Genevieve shouted, "The mage is nearby." The lake churned violently, and crimson magical power surged toward the boat like a tidal wave. Commanding from ashore, Shane drew his sword. "Seal off the entire area. Don't let even a rat escape." The Royal Guard rose and answered, "Yes, sir." Harrison reached out to Genevieve and shouted, "Jenny, it's too dangerous here. Come here." Standing at the bow, Genevieve looked at the scene before her and said, "Compared to last time, this is nothing at all." Genevieve raised her right hand, and dazzling golden light burst from her palm. "Don't worry about me, Harrison. I'm not the person I used to be anymore." Her golden divine power exploded in an instant, shooting skyward like a great pillar of light and dispersing all the surrounding red magic. Genevieve let out a cry. It was the backlash from dispelling the spell. Search in the direction the magic rebounded from. Dig 3 feet into the ground if you have to. Find him. A guard shouted, "Sir, we got him." A mage in red robes lay collapsed on the ground, sparks of magical backlash still crackling over his body. This was the mage. Back in the room at the palace, Genevieve said with a smile, "The impact really was strong at the time. Even the boat shook. But thanks to the guards and Lord Shane, I wasn't hurt at all. It's just a little disappointing that I didn't get to properly introduce you to my husband. He retreated too quickly and kept saying things like a saintess shouldn't put herself in danger." She really didn't seem to reflect on it at all. Genevieve said with a smile, "Next time, I'll definitely introduce you properly. So please don't worry, Lady Adeline. I'm completely fine. You've become so much stronger, Genevieve. I was really worried about you. I'm so relieved to see that you're safe." "Yes, Lady Adeline," Adeline asked. "Then who is the culprit?" Standing in the center of the room, Shane replied, "Someone from within the church. A priest who learned black magic. If it weren't so disgusting, it would almost sound like a joke." Adeline asked in confusion, "A priest? Why would a priest want to kill the saintess?" Shane explained, "It's a power struggle between the church and the crown. Although the saintess is nominally under the royal family's authority, the pope adores her very much. If Genevieve were to become the next pope, the church fears it would ultimately fall completely under royal control. It's a rotten mess. The pope is advanced in years, so they've started growing restless." Adeline looked at Genevieve and asked, "Then the attack at the palace banquet before this, was that aimed at you too?" Shane replied, "We still need to confirm it, but we suspect it was meant as a warning to both the saintess and the royal family. If nobles had been killed or wounded in the attack, and the palace proved unable to deal with the crisis, the people would have turned to support the church instead." Disgusted, Adeline said, "That's despicable. Are you serious?" Genevieve looked at Adeline and said, "But there's no need to worry now. We caught the real culprit. It's all over. All over." In the original story, they had also caught the mage who caused the disturbance. The incident was resolved, and the story ended happily. Although the path to get here and the route taken by the protagonists had been very different from the original, in the end, we had still reached the same conclusion as the original. So maybe it really was over. If that were true, then maybe I finally been freed from the original story at last? The predetermined story had ended. Every character had escaped the fate written in the script and gone on to live their own lives. Genevieve was walking her own path with Harrison by her side. Shane was walking his own path as well. And I, Adeline, I was walking mine. Tears slid down Adeline's cheeks and fell into the abyss of darkness. Was it really over? "Adeline!" Shane cried out. "Lady Adeline!" Genevieve called anxiously. Adeline's entire body collapsed into Shane's arms, and a pained sound escaped her. I once thought that in order to survive, I had to abandon my people, my memories, and my feelings. I had always believed that surviving in this world was my only goal. If I had known everything would end this easily, I would not have struggled so painfully, and I would not have hurt the people most precious to me. Adeline's tears would not stop falling. Shane cried out, "Adeline, Adeline!" Leaning in Shane's arms, Adeline whispered, "I'm sorry, Shane." Anxiously, Shane asked, "What's wrong, Adeline?" In her heart, she continued to whisper, "I'm sorry, Genevieve. I'm truly so sorry." The office door opened, and the Crown Prince walked in. "Well now, am I interrupting a touching moment?" Shane sat on the sofa with the sleeping Adeline in his arms. Standing beside them, Genevieve replied, "Please don't tease me, Your Highness. I'm not entirely sure what happened either, but after hearing that the mage had been caught, she seemed to relax, then cried herself to sleep." Shane looked up at the Crown Prince and asked, "Is the interrogation over?" The Crown Prince replied, "For today at least, but I have a feeling this is going to drag on for a long time." Then he continued jokingly, "Thanks to our dear Saintess, I suffered quite a heavy loss this time." Genevieve said hurriedly, "Please stop making fun of me." The Crown Prince put away his smile and fell into thought. Though that's true enough, the real problem is his testimony. It's full of holes. He admitted to attacking the Saintess, but claimed he was acting under someone else's orders. Strangely, however, he says his memory of the person who gave those orders is very vague. Not only that, he completely denied involvement in the earlier monster summoning incident. Genevieve replied, "As for the second point, that's entirely possible. The magic I felt on the lake was far weaker than it had been during the last incident. If he had endured magic of that level back then, he would have died the moment I destroyed the monster. We can't let our guard down." Turning around, he looked at Adeline, still sleeping in Shane's arms. In a low voice, the Crown Prince said, "The true mastermind behind all of this is probably still hiding somewhere in the shadows."